Chapter 2496. The entire altar was square-shaped. It was carved out of a huge blood-red stone. It was floating in the void, motionless. Countless blood-red chains were shuttling in the void above the altar. They were locking an ancient sword above the altar. The shape was simple and unadorned. There were many patterns on it. Each pattern was like a blood groove. It was full of strange but vast aura. There were only two ancient Taoist characters engraved on the sword hilt, Avicii. This was an extremely ancient character. Yi Shiwen had never seen it before. However, he naturally understood the meaning of these two characters when he probed it with his divine sense. In ancient times, many Taoist characters had strange shapes. One could only rely on oneself to comprehend them. The two characters of Avicii revealed a vast and boundless feeling. In ancient legends, there was a legend of the Avicii Hell in the world of the dead. It meant eternal suffering. It was the lowest of all the hells. People who committed crimes during their lifetime would enter the Avicii Hell to suffer after death. Of course, having cultivated to his level, he naturally understood that many myths and legends might have some basis, but even more were absurd and uninhibited. After a living being died, their souls directly dissolved on the spot could be found everywhere. They didn't enter the legendary world of the dead, the eternal underworld. Not to mention the so-called 18 layers of hell. He had never seen it before. However, the legend of the 18 layers of hell had been circulated in various worlds. Perhaps it wasn't that simple. However, it involved the world of the dead after death. It was also a taboo among the gods. Just from the two characters of Avicii, one could feel a vast and ancient aura. This sword dared to use the legendary hell as its name. It was naturally extraordinary. It was just that these chains had locked the sword in place. These chains seemed to be preventing the birth of this ancient sword. Avicii's sword. Yi Shiwen softly read the ancient pronunciation of these three characters. The body of the ancient sword suddenly began to tremble violently. It bloomed with dazzling light as if it was announcing something. This altar is behind the defeat of 9 peoples? Yi Shiwen murmured. He could feel that the Avicii sword was exuding an amazing killing intention. All magic tools, especially divine tools that had slain gods, carried an indescribable killing intent. However, such a shocking killing intent was unprecedented. This was because the sword was bound by the blood-colored chain. Otherwise, if it were to be revealed, its killing intent would be so shocking that an ordinary person would probably become an idiot in an instant. Yi Shiwen also felt a sense of extreme danger in his heart. It was his sixth sense. It meant that he wouldn't be any better if he was in Yi Shiwen's shoes. This made him feel very conflicted. He could feel the power of the sword of Avicii. It was very strong, but the consequences were not something he could bear for the time being. The corner of his mouth twitched as he said, "Is this the reward for defeating 9 people? It's just that the reward itself is also a kind of reward, right? If you recklessly go forward, you'll instantly become an idiot." However, it was very obvious that the entire altar seemed to be under the control of some kind of power and collapsed in an instant. Countless chains collapsed along with the altar, and the Avicii sword burst into an astonishing light in the sky. It seemed as if it had finally come into being, and countless sword lights swept out like a gale and a wave. Wallalala! The corners of Yi Shiwen's clothes were fluttering in the wind of the Avicii sword. A kind of boundless hostility swept out from the Avicii sword and suddenly rushed into Yi Shiwen's mind. In his eyes, the surroundings instantly turned into a gray hell, and boundless darkness shrouded this world. It was an endless wilderness as far as the eye could see. However, the truly terrifying thing was that the wilderness wasn't covered with weeds, but with human hands. It seemed as if countless people were buried in a hiding place. Mournful screams came from the side of his ears. It seemed as if something wanted to crawl out of this land. Those were all sinners, sinners who would forever sink in the Avicii hell. They would suffer the most painful torture. Suddenly, there was a flash in front of his eyes, and it instantly turned into a mountain of knives. Shining blades fell upside down on the endless mountain ridges, and each blade had a soul pierced on it. and they were constantly screaming as they hung on it. Before Yi Shiwen could see more, this mountain of knives instantly turned into a sea of fire. Countless souls were struggling in it, and they were being burned by the raging fire. They screamed endlessly, and they struggled to crawl towards Yi Shiwen. "Sinner, quickly accept your punishment." A loud shout came from the void, and it directly shook the internal organs of Yi Shiwen. An indescribable pressure crushed down, and it wanted to make Yi Shiwen kneel on the spot. In the void, there was a faint aura of 6 paths of reincarnation spreading, and a huge wheel was condensing, and it wanted to suck him into the 6 paths of reincarnation and bring him to endless reincarnation. "I have already proven my Tao and become a god. I have transcended the world, jumped out of the 3 realms, and am no longer in the 5 elements. Who do you think you are, and you dare to make me admit my guilt and accept my punishment?" Yi Shiwen suddenly opened his eyes, and there was endless light flashing in his eyes. "Just a mere resentment, and you dare to show off in front of me? You are really courting death. Break for me." Yi Shiwen opened the eyes of redemption and instantly saw through it. There was no Avicii hell, and there was no mountain of knives or sea of fire. They were all formed by a resentment that rushed into his mind. Although he didn't have the enlightening mind ancient tree to suppress his mind, it was impossible to confuse him with just a trace of evil chi and resentment. He blasted out a punch, and the resentment were dispersed on the spot. Everything in front of him became clear, but more resentment rushed in, and it wanted to impact him into an idiot. On his body, the power of thunder instantly turned into a battle armor and protected him in it. This was the strongest and most positive lightning in the world, and it specialized in restraining the evil power of the yin. It could barely resist the increasingly terrifying resentment. He looked at the void, and in the void, the Avicii sword was constantly bursting out a kind of amazing sword light, and it blasted into the void. It seemed to be fighting against something, and it wanted to break the restraint of this space. The crack in the space was getting bigger, and it seemed that the Avicii sword was really going to escape. It wanted to force him to make a choice. "I'm going all out. I can't let the Avicii sword escape." Yi Shiwen immediately roared, and his hands instantly turned into boundless chains, and he grabbed the Avicii sword. Bang! The Avicii sword was just about to escape, but it was caught by Yi Shiwen's hand. In an instant, the boundless murderous aura rushed out, and it almost broke his mind. Compared to the resentment at this time, the bit of resentment and murderous aura just now was simply not worth mentioning. This time was the real horror. Although the mysterious space in his body suddenly erupted in a short time and absorbed most of the resentment and murderous aura, it still couldn't resolve the endless murderous aura, and it directly rushed into his brain. His eyes instantly turned red, and he only felt that there was endless murderous aura all over his body that needed to be resolved. This murderous aura directly invaded his blood vessels and made his blood boil instantly. He barely found a bit of clarity and took out the Tianyuan mirror and directly absorbed the Avicii sword into it. Both sides directly collided, and an astonishing light burst out. The Avicii sword could actually resist the absorption of the Tianyuan mirror, and it seemed that it had a powerful potential that had yet to burst out. However, in the end, it was still suppressed by Yi Shiwen and absorbed into the Tianyuan mirror. Although the Avicii sword was terrifying, it couldn't break the space of the Tianyuan mirror. Both sides continued to fight, and countless God-ruled chains instantly formed and entangled the Avicii sword, firmly binding him. The murderous aura in Yi Shiwen's mind gradually dissipated, and his eyes regained their clarity. The Avicii sword's murderous aura almost made him collapse, not to mention if it really erupted with power, perhaps no one could resist it. However, in order to suppress the Avicii sword, the Tianyuan mirror could be considered as scrapped. Unless he could refine the Avicii sword later, otherwise, it would be very difficult to use the Tianyuan mirror again. It was almost like losing an arm. However, he didn't regret it. Although there was no way to use the Tianyuan mirror for the time being, it was undoubtedly a great harvest for him if he could refine the Avicii sword and he would also have one more trump card in his hand. Of course, the premise was that he could withstand the endless, terrifying, murderous aura of the Avicii sword. It could be said that there were advantages and disadvantages. However, at this time, the spreading, imposing aura on his body didn't converge as he regained his clarity. Instead, it continued to spread out. Just a moment ago, he was unable to control his cultivation after being attacked by the murderous aura. He didn't control it again. Anyway, he had decided to make a breakthrough. Boom! Even the cultivation vest on his body was no longer deliberately suppressed. It relaxed, and a huge amount of power was released. It instantly swept out in a frenzy, and the energy directly shattered the void. The power continued to circulate in his body, and crazily attacked the barrier of the late stage of undead realm. This realm barrier couldn't be said to be not strong enough. Originally, Yi Shiwen couldn't break through it. However, the tempering of the past thousands of years had made his strength rise to an unimaginable level during this period of time. It was originally difficult to break through the realm barrier. At this time, it simply couldn't stop Yi Shiwen. It collapsed inch by inch, and Yi Shiwen's strength also continued to rise along with the continuous collapse of the realm barrier. It seemed that his strength was improving every minute and every second, and he was breaking through the original realm. Rumble! His whole body seemed to explode, and the energy crazily swept out. He didn't know how much time had passed before he completely opened his eyes. The last trace of the realm barrier on his body had also completely disappeared. Finally rushed into the late stage of undead realm. A total of 1,000 years, it's really a long time. Yi Shiwen smiled slightly, clenched his fists, and felt the powerful and terrifying power erupting in his body. It surpassed all the perception he could perceive in the past. Even if it's a real divine kingdom, I can still smash it with one punch. Curfirst Road, here I come. His figure flashed, and he had already disappeared. Chapter 2497. In the depths of the void of the universe, a vast ancient road slowly unveiled its mysterious veil. The Curfirst Road, which only appeared once every 100,000 years, was finally reopened. For many people, this was of extraordinary significance. This was a road to choose a sovereign emperor. It was also the only place in the universe in recent times where one had a clear chance to enter the sovereign emperor realm. The vastness of the Curfirst Road attracted countless people. Not only those who had once shaken the world and swept across the Curfirst Road, but even other people wanted to enter the Curfirst Road. Because although they were not qualified to compete for that wisp of opportunity, there were many other opportunities in the Curfirst Road. Of course, most importantly, no one could say who would get the opportunity in the end. A kind of bell rang throughout the universe, announcing the opening of the Curfirst Road. This road would really be opened in this void for 1,000 years. This was the time and opportunity for people to search for the legendary opportunities related to sovereign emperors. The calm peace heaven, one of the lower heaven of the Curfirst Road's 33 heavens. At this time, countless people gathered, all for the Curfirst Road that only appeared once every 100,000 years. Many old antiques who had been sleeping for many years also woke up in the sound of the bell and came. For a moment, it seemed that all the gods in the world had gathered here. This was a vast, boundless, uninhabited area. No one knew who established it, only that it was called the Calm Peace Heaven. In the Curfirst Road, there were a total of 33 such small worlds, known as the 33 heavens, which were further divided into the upper, middle, and lower heavens. The Calm Peace Heaven was one of the lower heavens. Because it was only a lower heaven, it was undoubtedly much safer than the middle and upper heavens, so it was also the place that countless people chose to stay. However, although it was a lower heaven, there were many natural treasures and miracles in the Calm Peace Heaven that were hard to find in the outside world. This was also the graveyard that most people came to. They did not have the strength to fight in the middle and upper heavens, but at least they had no problem in the lower heavens. When Yi Shiwen set foot on the Calm Peace Heaven, the first world of the Curfirst Road, it had already been decades since the Curfirst Road opened. He was still too late, unable to catch up to the first wave of excitement. At this time, The 33 heavens were a boiling cauldron of voices. There hadn't been a single person for 100,000 years, but now, it was like a completely different world had changed. He came to an ancient city. This city was covered with weathered marks of time, but it was forcibly fixed by a formation. Even though millions of years had passed, it still hadn't collapsed. Carps were recognized as a race that had the bloodline of the dragon race. However, the amount of dragon race bloodline they had was different depending on the race. There was a saying that carps jumped over the dragon gate and burned their tails to become a real dragon. It referred to the scene when the powerhouses of the carp race crossed the dragon gate, purified their bloodline, and truly incarnated into a supreme heavenly dragon. The dragon race that these carps turned into was also a very powerful race on the dragon island. They were called carp dragons. They were different from the ordinary pure-blooded dragon race, but they were also very powerful. In fact, some of them were even more powerful than the ordinary dragon race. Therefore, when these carps cultivated to a certain extent, they would automatically incarnate into a heavenly dragon. However, there were some carp races that belonged to the exception, such as this golden-backed dragon carp. This kind of golden-backed dragon carp belonged to a special species of heaven and earth. They were born with the ability to cultivate. It belonged to the category of automatic cultivation. Some golden-backed dragon carps, who had cultivated for a very long time, could even compare to a heavenly dragon. However, these golden-backed dragon carps often didn't have enough wisdom. So, they rarely chose to transform into human form. They would often cultivate all the way and continuously accumulate their power. Some terrifying ancestors of the golden-backed dragon carps could accumulate power for hundreds of thousands of years. This kind of power was enough to kill a formidable god, even if they didn't know any magical power. However, these golden-backed dragon carps often had formidable power, but didn't know how to cultivate. Therefore, they had become a tonic in the eyes of many people. In fact, they were very nutritious supplements. As a result, the golden-backed dragon carps were rarely seen in other places, apart from some on Dragon Island. Yi Shiwen had also sighed endlessly when he had read the records about the golden-backed dragon carp. One must know that one could save tens of thousands of years of accumulation of power if one could catch one. This was simply a shortcut. If one could catch an ancestor of the golden-backed dragon carp, it was equivalent to increasing one's cultivation by hundreds of thousands of years out of thin air. Such a skyrocketing cultivation was really terrifying. However, the golden-backed dragon carp was such a precious thing. How could it be sold on the street? After seeing the previous stall owner selling ordinary divine tools as ancient divine tools, Yi Shiwen already had a guess in his heart. Therefore, he simply opened the eye of redemption. The opposite stall owner didn't seem to care. He looked very confident. Yi Shiwen's eye of redemption couldn't see anything wrong. This golden-backed dragon carp was actually real and not fake. He saw that the golden-backed dragon carp in the fish tank wasn't big. It was almost the same size as an ordinary carp. However, this carp's body was full of the aura of the dragon clan. It had a pair of dragon horns, and the scales on its body were engraved with the profound talismans of the dragon clan. Its back was completely golden, as if it was made of pure gold. Its eyes were somewhat lifeless. He suddenly discovered that something was wrong. Although he had never seen this golden-backed dragon carp before, he had seen its records. It could be said to be an extremely ferocious species. Its eyes were as fierce as a real dragon's, and it had an extremely bad temper. A powerful golden-backed dragon carp could even kill its real body with a slap of its tail. How could it be so lifeless? With this doubt, Yi Shiwen immediately activated the Eye of Redemption and carefully examined it. The aura of this golden-backed dragon carp was faintly discernible. Although it was covered by a powerful dragon aura, this dragon aura didn't seem to be produced by itself. Instead, it seemed to be added later on. The purpose of adding the dragon aura was already very obvious. It was to deceive people. This golden-backed dragon carp was probably dying. It was no wonder that such a precious golden-backed dragon carp was being sold in this stall. How much is this golden-backed dragon carp? I want it. Yi Shiwen suddenly opened his mouth and said. The stall owner opposite him immediately beamed with joy. Finally, someone was fooled. This golden-backed dragon carp is a genuine golden-backed dragon carp. Moreover, its bloodline is very pure. If you buy it and train it properly, and if you have the opportunity to awaken its intelligence, your future cultivation will be limitless. Then, you will have an excellent pet. The stall owner chattered on. He tried his best to exaggerate his golden-backed dragon carp. Stop talking nonsense. How much is it? Yi Shiwen said somewhat impatiently. He had a faint guess in his heart, and his heart was extremely excited. If it was true, then he was really going to pick up a great treasure this time. The stall owner looked at Yi Shiwen in astonishment. He didn't expect this sucker to be so straightforward. He quickly smiled and said, 5 million divine roots. As long as you have 5 million divine roots, this golden-backed dragon carp will be yours. I'm also short of money. Otherwise, I wouldn't have given this golden-backed dragon carp to someone else. All right. Yi Shiwen nodded and didn't haggle over it. Wait a minute. Suddenly, a delicate shout was heard. Chapter 2498. Suddenly, there was a shout. The sound of footsteps came from a distance. Yi Shiwen turned his head and saw a beautiful woman in a bright red dress. She was about 20 years old, and she rushed over like a flame. When the stall owner saw the woman in the red dress, his face suddenly turned ugly, and the corner of his mouth twitched slightly. Why is it this girl again? Although this sentence was said in a very low voice, Yi Shiwen still heard it. He couldn't help but feel a little funny. The woman in the red dress had arrived in front of the two in an instant. She stood with her hands behind her back, and there was a feeling of superiority. Zhu Yin'er, what are you doing here again? The stall owner looked a little helpless and a little angry. Of course, to stop you from cheating, the woman in the red dress said matter-of-factly. Then she looked at Yi Shiwen and said, You must be careful if you want to buy his goods. This guy has a criminal record. He likes to use some fake things to deceive newcomers like you. How do you know that I just arrived? Yi Shiwen was a little curious. That's because this guy is notorious. Among those who came earlier, how many of them didn't know about him? Zhu Yin'er's delicate little face was slightly proud. Of course, this is also my credit. I can't stand to see newcomers like you being deceived by him. Yi Shiwen didn't expect that Zhu Yin'er was such a warm-hearted person. Here it could be said that everyone was a competitor. It was good enough that she didn't help to deceive you. She was basically indifferent to you, let alone standing up to warn you. Zhu Yin'er, I only deceived you once. I later returned all the God Source to you. What else do you want? The stall owner was a middle-aged man. At this time, he was already angry. Obviously, this middle-aged man also deceived Zhu Yin'er before. At this time, Zhu Yin'er kept coming to him. Zhu Yin'er's little face was slightly flushed. Her true warm-hearted nature was exposed in front of Yi Shiwen. But then she said, I said that as long as you continue to deceive here, don't even think of succeeding. Many people around could not help but shudder. Villains and women were difficult to deal with. The ancients were right. It was better to offend villains than to offend women. This stall owner had only cheated her once, but she actually wanted to ruin his good fortune so badly that she wouldn't stop until she was dead. Many of the people around them were also stall owners, and many of them were swindlers. At this moment, they all felt lucky. Fortunately, this girl was swindled by this guy as soon as she came in, and they didn't have time to swindle her. Otherwise, it would be terrible. Yi Shiwen raised the corner of his mouth. Although there was a secret that he did not know, Zhu Yin'er was indeed not a bad person. Now you know that I'm doing this for your own good. If you were cheated by him, I'm afraid you would cry in the toilet. Zhu Yin'er was a little proud. Using 5 million divine roots to buy a dead fish is simply not worth it. I see that you don't know either. After the golden-backed dragon carp dies, its skills will dissipate quickly. It is not of much use at all. That stall owner looked at Zhu Yin'er and wanted to explain, but in the end, he did not say anything. Obviously, Di was also quite afraid of Zhu Yin'er. All right, thank you for the reminder. Boss, you are too unkind. Yi Shiwen looked at that stall owner and said, This kind of thing depends on your judgment. I did not force you to buy or sell. Said that stall owner, a little depressed. How many of his plans had been ruined by this girl? He could have deceived a few rich people, but in the end, it was all gone. That's true. How about this? I will buy this dead fish for 500,000 divine source. How about that? Asked Yi Shiwen. That stall owner looked at Yi Shiwen, dumbfounded. He did not expect Yi Shiwen to say this. He knew that it was a dead fish, but he still dared to buy it. 500,000 is too little, the stall owner said unwillingly. Apart from me, who else is willing to buy this dead fish? Yi Shiwen said calmly. That stall owner was helpless. He was about to cry his eyes out. It seemed like he was right. Zhu Yin'er had her eyes on him. It would not be easy to pretend to be a live fish and sell it. And apart from this seemingly stupid person, no one else would buy a dead golden-backed dragon carp. Hey, didn't you hear what I said just now? This is a dead fish, and you still want to buy it? Zhu Yin'er suddenly said. She did not understand, and was even a little unhappy. If he still wanted to buy it, then all her efforts would have been in vain. It was really infuriating. The surrounding people were also dumbfounded. They did not know what to say. Is this person stupid? Forget about being cheated previously. Now that he knows that it is a dead fish, he still wants to buy it. Of course, a dead golden-backed dragon carp could not possibly be worthless. Not to mention 5 million divine source. Even 500,000 divine source was a little difficult. If this was a living golden-backed dragon carp, from its age, 50 million divine source would be worth it. Not only Zhu Yin'er, but everyone else was also a little dumbfounded. They did not dare to believe that Yi Shiwen still wanted to buy it for 500,000 divine source. I heard it, but it is still useful, Yi Shiwen said with a laugh. Since he had already said so, Zhu Yin'er had no other choice. The middle-aged stall owner looked at Zhu Yin'er provocatively. Although he was afraid of her identity and didn't dare to do anything, he still wanted to vent his anger. This Dharma artifact is for you too. The stall owner seemed to want to buy one and get one free. He even gave Yi Shiwen this fish tank Dharma artifact. This fish tank was exquisitely made, but it actually did not cost much divine source. All right then. Yi Shiwen was secretly happy. He gave 500,000 divine source to the stall owner and successfully kept the golden-backed dragon carp. Zhu Yin'er, who was at the side, was so angry that she jumped. However, there was no other way. One party was willing to buy, and the other party was willing to sell. She could not interfere. I did not expect to have such a huge harvest today. Yi Shiwen could not help but smile. He was no longer as calm as he was just now. That stall owner seemed to have realized something. Could it be that he had miscalculated something? This fellow did not look like a fool who had so much divine source that he did not know where to spend it. 500,000 divine source to buy a dead fish was indeed a loss. He faintly felt that something was wrong. However, what was done could not be undone. He did not say anything. Moreover, he felt that he had made a profit from the bottom of his heart. Don't sell that golden-backed dragon carp. Suddenly, another loud shout came from afar. A fierce tiger with golden patterns all over its body and a pair of sharp horns on its head descended from the sky. Someone exclaimed in a low voice. This fierce tiger was an unusual species among the tiger species. It was also a very powerful species, the golden-striped horned tiger. It was said that this species was very powerful. Before they became gods, they dared to challenge the gods. They were very terrifying. What exactly is going on? That stall owner looked at the golden-striped horned tiger and could not help but feel a little strange. I'm sorry, sir. That golden-backed dragon carp has been sold. He seemed to be very afraid of that fierce tiger. His tone was also very respectful, and he addressed that person as sir. What? Sold it? No way. My young master needs that golden-backed dragon carp to break through. The fierce tiger instantly glared at him and said with dignity, Who did he sell it to? I will get it back. Sir, the golden-backed dragon carp was sold to him. That stall owner sold Yi Shiwen without any integrity. However, why does your young master need a dead golden-backed dragon carp to break through? Some of the surrounding people also knew about the origin of this golden-striped horned tiger. They knew who the young master was. They were also a little stunned. What kind of person was that? He could not have anything he wanted. Everyone knew that the golden-backed dragon carp could increase one's cultivation. However, a dead golden-backed dragon carp could not increase one's cultivation. Why did he want a dead golden-backed dragon carp? Idiot, That golden-backed dragon carp is not dead. It has entered a state of hibernation. Our young master said that the golden-backed dragon carp has entered the most critical stage. After this hibernation, it will be able to advance further and become a golden-backed dragon carp king. What do you know? The golden-striped horned tiger glared and growled in a low voice. He did not care at all about revealing the golden-backed dragon carp in front of everyone. Would anyone dare to compete with him? What? That golden-backed dragon carp is actually hibernating and evolving. Suddenly, everyone was in an uproar. A golden-backed dragon carp of this age was already a very rare divine material. If this golden-backed dragon carp could evolve into the legendary golden-backed dragon carp king, its value would increase exponentially. The golden-backed dragon carp king was the king of golden-backed dragon carps. Golden-backed dragon carps were very rare, but there might not even be one in 10,000 golden-backed dragon carp king that could evolve into a golden-backed dragon carp king. That was the most supreme divine material. Even kings would be tempted when they saw it. Not to mention Eternal Realm and Sage Realm cultivators. They would go crazy for it. At that moment, everyone's eyes turned to Yi Shiwen. How could they not understand that Yi Shiwen was not the kind of idiot that everyone thought he was? He was a fool who had been fooled. He had clearly seen that the so-called dead golden-backed dragon carp was on the verge of evolution. It was only hibernating and evolving. Everyone was almost fooled by him. They really thought that he was honest and easy to fool. I thought you were very honest. I didn't expect you to be such a cunning guy. Zhu Yin could not help but say. She had spoken up for him just now. She did not expect that he had already planned everything. No wonder he had to buy a dead fish back, no matter how he raised it. Oh, I've been seen through. This is a bit troublesome, Yi Shiwen said plainly. Chapter 2499. Oh, I've been seen through. This is going to be troublesome, Yi Shiwen said calmly. Yi Shiwen said it was troublesome, but his expression was not sincere. He did not seem to be in any trouble at all. This matter was naturally troublesome. He had originally wanted to buy the golden-backed dragon carp in a low-key manner. His eyes were so sharp that he could almost see at a glance that the golden-backed dragon carp seemed to be lifeless. But in fact, it was just leveling up and was in a kind of dormancy. On the contrary, there was even more majestic energy being released. This was a sign that it was about to undergo a transformation. With the level of this golden-backed dragon carp, it was very likely to evolve into a golden-backed dragon carp king. That was a priceless divine material. Even titled kings would be tempted. Who would not be tempted to gain hundreds of thousands of years of cultivation? Generally speaking, the higher one's cultivation was, the less useful ordinary divine ingredients would be. Ordinary golden-backed dragon carps were useful to ordinary deities and even to sage plane experts. However, to king-ranked experts, they were of little use and were not very useful. But golden-backed dragon carp king was different. Even titled kings could greatly improve their cultivation. Therefore, he did not want to make a big deal out of this. He had secretly kept the golden-backed dragon carp. When it evolved into a golden-backed dragon carp king, he would swallow it, and his cultivation would improve by leaps and bounds. Once this news got out, even titled kings might come to fight for it. He did not want to cause trouble, but he did not expect it to happen. Everyone looked at his calm appearance. How could they not understand that their guess just now was probably right? This guy had indeed known long ago. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so calm. He didn't even feel like he had been caught in the act. But you were a little interesting. Zhu Yin'er thought for a moment, then suddenly tilted her head and grinned. Although she had been tricked by this guy just now, it was equivalent to being tricked. However, in this market, everything depended on one's judgment. There was nothing she could do if she was tricked. However, if she could get one or two good things, it was also because she had good judgment. Even she could not tell that this golden-backed dragon carp was not dead and was in a dormant evolution. But this guy in front of her could tell. His judgment was not simple. Yi Shiwen indifferently shrugged his shoulders. He had bought it fair and square, so there was nothing to worry about. I'm leaving first. Yi Shiwen immediately turned around and was about to leave. Wait. The stall owner quickly stepped forward and said, What's wrong? Do you want to go back on your word? Yi Shiwen frowned. but there was a faint smile on the corner of his mouth. "I'm sorry. This is our negligence. We won't be selling this golden-backed dragon carp. We'll return you the divine source you just received, and we'll pay you back double." "How about that?" the stall owner said shamelessly. He had thought about it very clearly. Selling to Yi Shiwen would really make him cry in the toilet. Zhang, he had actually sold a potential golden-backed dragon carp king for a mere 500,000 divine roots. Although he knew that it would be difficult for him to keep the golden-backed dragon carp king, if he sold it to this golden-striped horned tiger, he would definitely earn a huge sum of money. Why didn't you say that you were negligent when you used a dead fish to deceive me just now? Now that you want it back, you should just give up." The golden-backed dragon carp king was already in his hands, and he still wanted it back. He was thinking too much. "Friend, don't refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit," the stall owner said coldly. Cutting off one's source of wealth was like killing one's parents. From his point of view, Yi Shiwen's actions had already cut off his source of wealth. Naturally, it was as if he had a deep hatred for him. "You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit." "Sorry, I'm a person who loves to drink forfeit. I like to see what it tastes like." Yi Shiwen's expression instantly turned cold. First, this person used a fake to deceive him. Now, he actually wanted to snatch the golden-backed dragon carp back. This had completely angered Yi Shiwen. "Don't refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. You probably don't know what kind of big shot the person who wants this golden-backed dragon carp is," the stall owner threatened in a low voice. "It doesn't matter who it is. I only know that I've already paid the god source. This golden-backed dragon carp is mine, regardless of whether it turns into a real dragon or a golden-backed dragon carp king. If you want to snatch something from me, you should consider whether you have the life to enjoy it," Yi Shiwen said coldly. Everyone was in an uproar. This was another lawless person. He clearly knew that there was a powerful big shot behind this golden-striped horned tiger, but he still dared to be so arrogant. Moreover, not to mention the big shot behind him, even the golden-striped horned tiger itself was an extremely tyrannical clan. Within the same realm, it was well known, and it was also a battle pet that many people wanted to tame. There were many people who wanted to do so, but only a few succeeded. Most of them were swallowed by the golden-striped horned tiger in one bite. This highlighted the terrifying big shot behind this tiger. What else is there to say to an arrogant kid like him? The golden-striped horned tiger said coldly. It looked at Yi Shiwen coldly, as if it was looking at a dead person. Since you are unwilling to hand over the golden-backed dragon carp, don't blame me for being rude." The middle-aged stall owner's expression suddenly changed. He didn't want to continue being entangled with Yi Shiwen. With a roar, he soared into the sky and instantly transformed into a green-faced, fanged humanoid creature, like a legendary demon. This was his real body. Previously, he had only transformed into a human. Boom! He instantly grabbed Yi Shiwen with his claws. That ghastly claw suddenly enveloped Yi Shiwen. "Hey, be careful. Although this guy is a bit shameless, he is from the Sinluo ghost tribe. Don't be careless," Zhu Yenner, who was next to him, said. She was very clear about the background of this stall owner. Dang! Everyone only saw that Yi Shiwen didn't dodge or evade. In an instant, he was caught. They thought that they would see a scene of blood bursting out. They thought that he had no time to react at all. However, the bloody scene that they imagined did not happen. Instead, they saw the Sinluo ghost claw directly grab Yi Shiwen's body. There was a sound of gold and iron colliding, but it couldn't do anything to Yi Shiwen. It couldn't even make him move a little. How is this possible? The Sinluo ghost claw can't even break his defense. Someone exclaimed and tried hard to open his eyes. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they would have almost thought that they had seen it wrong. The middle-aged stall owner didn't look eye-catching. In fact, he was a powerful existence in the late stage of the eternal realm. In the middle and upper heavens, such a cultivation might be nothing, but in the lower heavens, such a cultivation could be said to be quite tyrannical. After all, there were many gods who only had the cultivation of the immortal realm everywhere. This was also why the middle-aged stall owner was able to stand firmly without being retaliated, even though he had never changed his place despite being constantly exposed for selling fake goods. It was because those who wanted to retaliate against him couldn't beat him, and many of them were killed on the spot. He only suffered losses from one person, and that was Zhu Yin-er. He thought that Zhu Yin-er was a fool who could be easily exploited. Who would have thought that she was also a thorn in his side and taught him a good lesson? If it wasn't for the fact that this person had a backer behind him, he might have been killed by Zhu Yin-er. But now, his attack was easily blocked by Yi Shiwen. No, it wasn't blocked. It should be said that Yi Shiwen didn't move at all. He allowed the attack to fall on his body. His physical cultivation had reached an unprecedented level, and no one would be able to reach it in the future. How is it possible? My Sunluo Ghost Claw didn't even have the slightest effect. The middle-aged stall owner said in disbelief. If it was simply blocked, he wouldn't be surprised. However, Yi Shiwen didn't move and let him attack. He couldn't do anything to Yi Shiwen. This was simply a great shame. I don't believe it. So, what if your physical body is tyrannical? Watch me break your spirit. He let out a loud roar, and his ghostly claw once again stretched out. Suddenly, an overwhelming aura pervaded the air and turned into a big hand in the sky. It was like a small mountain, and it pressed down towards Yi Shiwen. On this palm, there was even a very powerful figure with a green face and fangs. It was a peerless ghost emperor who once dominated the heavens. Now his figure was revealed, and it was very terrifying. This ghost aura directly rushed into Yi Shiwen's mind, and the space was shattered everywhere. It was very terrifying, and the endless space was shaken into fragments. However, Yi Shiwen didn't move in the slightest. On the contrary, he still looked very indifferent, and there wasn't the slightest change from before. Only this time he finally counterattacked. A thunder dragon jumped out of his body and instantly grew bigger and bigger. It expanded against the wind and opened its bloody mouth and swallowed the big hand of the ghost emperor. Rumble! As the big hand was swallowed, the ghost aura that filled the sky also collapsed in the air and completely collapsed. The ghost aura that was swallowed still wanted to cause trouble, but it was all suppressed by the power of thunder. To deal with this kind of evil power, the power of thunder was almost handy. It restrained the ghost aura, and after a while, it exploded. The ghost hand was broken, and the middle-aged stall owner spat out a mouthful of blood. He retreated again, and he couldn't stop it at all. There was incomparable horror in his eyes. The terrible power of thunder directly jumped on his body, and all the ghost aura that protected his body collapsed. No matter how he wanted to dodge, it was useless. As a punishment, I will abolish your martial arts. Let's see if you can still go around and cheat people in the future. Yi Shiwen said coldly. With a swish, he took a step forward and instantly rushed in front of the middle-aged stall owner. Chapter 2500. He rushed to the front of the middle-aged stall owner and blasted a punch. The terrifying fist energy pierced through the void, directly went up to the sky, and smashed the sky. Behind him, there was an infinite power of thunder. The vast power of thunder filled the world, and a thunder dragon shuttled in it. This was the power of heaven's retribution, and it was now under his control. These thunder dragons constantly intertwined and occupied all the space. All the laws were instantly suppressed and turned into a domain of thunder and lightning. As soon as he made his move, he showed an extremely tyrannical cultivation of thunder and lightning, and a powerful thunder and lightning attack was launched. The dense ghost energy began to collapse like tofu in brine, and directly fell on the middle-aged stall owner's body. Bang! This punch instantly penetrated the middle-aged stall owner's chest, and his internal organs turned into powder. His whole body flew upside down and fiercely hit the barrier that emerged in midair. This city had existed for countless years, and it could be said that there were such barriers everywhere in the city. Otherwise, these existences, which were all gods, could easily destroy a world, let alone a small city. Roar! I'll fight you! The middle-aged stall owner roared, and his body continued to grow. He was a full 3 feet tall, and a ghost eye appeared on his forehead. It was a kind of magical power that he had refined. This kind of ghost eye exuded a kind of amazing ghost energy, and it actually forced Yi Shiwen's power of thunder and lightning away. His ghost eye opened, and in an instant, the world seemed to have turned into a world of ghosts, and it looked very terrifying. Hundreds of ghosts walked at night, and the roar of ghosts could be heard everywhere. The terrifying ghost energy even spread out, and Yi Shiwen's clothes fluttered in the wind. "You forced me to use this move. You should be proud," the middle-aged stall owner roared. He forcibly suppressed the injuries on his body, and Yi Shiwen's punch had penetrated his body. If he didn't have such a trump card, he would have lost the confidence to continue to fight against Yi Shiwen. But now there was no way out, not to mention that he still had hope after using this move. The Ghost Emperor's Eye. Could it be the legendary Ghost Emperor's Eye? This guy looks unremarkable, but who would have thought that he could actually cultivate such a legendary eye? Legend has it that it's a divine ability cultivated by the ghost race's invincible entity, the Ghost Emperor. It represents the supreme power of the world. Rumor has it that this kind of eye has unparalleled magical effects. In the Ghost Clan, it should be considered an extremely powerful magical ability. Seeing the Ghost Emperor's eye above his head, everyone was astonished. No one had expected this middle-aged stall owner to have hidden his strength so deeply. Even the golden-striped horned tiger's eyes were filled with fear. Initially, it didn't take this middle-aged stall owner seriously, but things were different now. Perhaps it was time to pay more attention to him. After the middle-aged stall owner from the Sinluo ghost tribe took out the Ghost Emperor's eye, his magic power skyrocketed. He was like a powerful ghost god that fused with the heaven and earth. There was no gap between him and the heaven and earth. The heaven and earth were filled with the wails of ghosts and howls of wolves, as if the heaven and earth were crying. At this moment, the middle-aged stall owner seemed to be the reincarnation of the Ghost Emperor. Wherever the gaze of this Ghost Emperor's eye passed, the sky would shatter. Countless ghosts would howl, turning the place into hell. A huge armor formed around his body, protecting him. It was as if the real Ghost Emperor had been reborn. Although this race was low-key now, it had once been extremely glorious. In the past, there was a Ghost Emperor that shook the world. He wreaked havoc in the world and tried to turn the world into a ghost realm. Later on, he provoked an old emperor of the human race, who killed him. However, this didn't damage the prestige of the Ghost Emperor. This was because the emperor who killed him was none other than Holy Emperor Xianyuan. When the Holy Emperor was reborn, he was almost invincible in the world. If there were strong and weak emperors, then Holy Emperor Xianyuan would undoubtedly be the best among them. No one could be compared to him. After the Ghost Emperor was killed, this race quickly declined and became more and more low-key. However, no one dared to underestimate this race. The Ghost Emperor's Eye. You didn't cultivate it. Someone must have sacrificed it. Later on, you obtained it and integrated it into your body. This power doesn't belong to you. It should be eroding your power all the time. It's really sad. Yi Shiwen sneered. He opened the Eye of Redemption and saw it in an instant. Although the Ghost Emperor's eye seemed powerful, it wasn't condensed by him. He just obtained it by accident. Then he smelted it into his body. After all, it wasn't cultivated by him. Moreover, he couldn't control it. Even when the Ghost Emperor's eye was opened, it was absorbing his spiritual power and life essence every minute and second. This was very fatal even for a deity. So what? As long as I kill you, I can make up for all my losses this time. In fact, I can even go further. So, you should die. This middle-aged stall owner had gone completely crazy. His ghostly claws tore the void. The terrifying power formed a black crack and spread towards Yi Shiwen. The Ghost Emperor's eye is a little interesting. However, it's only a little interesting. There's still no way to make up for the gap between you and me. Yi Shiwen sneered. He just stretched out his hand slightly and pointed a finger. The spreading crack stopped in front of him. The terrifying power acted on his finger. However, it couldn't even break his skin. Everyone cried out in alarm. They were also scared by Yi Shiwen's astonishing move. What kind of terrifying strength was this? He had blocked all the attacks with just one finger. This was too abnormal. Although they had some speculations just now that Yi Shiwen's physical cultivation was very strong, They didn't expect that Yi Shiwen could block his attacks with one finger. This was no longer abnormal. He was simply a monster. Impossible! The middle-aged stall owner roared. His roar was like thunder. He stepped out, and his ghostly figure flickered in an instant. He directly flashed in front of Yi Shiwen and clawed at Yi Shiwen. He appeared and disappeared like a ghost. He was as fast as lightning. Moreover, his power was also extremely terrifying. He easily tore the sky apart like a painting. Humph! Yi Shiwen snorted coldly. He blasted out a punch and collided with the opponent's ghostly claws. Bang! There was a terrifying collision sound. The middle-aged stall owner screamed. His entire arm was crushed into a cloud of blood mist on the spot. The middle-aged stall owner's cultivation could be said to be extremely strong among those in the same realm. However, compared to Yi Shiwen, he was far inferior. He was already not Yi Shiwen's opponent thousands of years ago, let alone thousands of years later. The two of them were not on the same level at all. Whoosh! The middle-aged stall owner's body flew out. However, the Ghost Emperor's eye on the top of his head suddenly opened. It shot out a terrifying ghostly aura, forming a powerful shock wave that rushed towards Yi Shiwen. However, in everyone's eyes, this terrifying attack that could even distort time and space was blocked by Yi Shiwen with his bare hands. He crushed it into dust. How is this possible? The middle-aged stall owner's eyes widened in incomparable shock. In fact, he had never failed before. Even if it was the peak of Eternal Realm who was stronger than him, he would also be seriously injured if he was not careful. Yi Shiwen had easily turned such an attack into nothingness. Such strength was really terrifying. Why is it impossible? He heard a ghostly voice. He didn't know when Yi Shiwen had appeared in front of him. He stretched out a hand to grab his Ghost Emperor's eye. Because Yi Shiwen's speed was too fast, he didn't even have time to react. He only felt a sharp pain. The Ghost Emperor's eye was directly dug out. Suddenly, a huge bloody hole appeared on his forehead. Ah, it hurts so much. The middle-aged stall owner couldn't help but scream again and again. The Ghost Emperor's eye was directly connected to his spirit. Yi Shiwen directly dug out a huge part of his spirit. Even a large part of his spirit was dug out by a terrifying force. He rolled on the ground in pain. You deceive outsiders all day, and you still want to go back on your words. I originally planned to abolish your martial arts, but now I will use this Ghost Emperor's eye as compensation, Yi Shiwen said while holding the Ghost Emperor's eye. Although he was talking to the middle-aged stall owner, he didn't even look at him. The strength of both sides was like a giant and an ant. The gap was too big. It was impossible for him to fail even if he wanted to. Right now, he wanted to study the Ghost Emperor's eye. Although the Ghost Emperor was defeated by the Holy Emperor in the past, it was a fact that he was a tyrannical existence of the Emperor realm. The Ghost Emperor's eye did have some tricks up its sleeve. It could even be said that it wasn't simple. But unfortunately, it was also broken. It should have been left behind after the original owner was defeated. It was not complete. But even so, as a magical power of the eyes, it was also very meaningful for the cultivation of the Eye of Redemption. How could this be? Everyone's eyes widened. A powerful master at the late stage of the undead realm was simply like a puppet in the hands of this person. All the attacks were easily destroyed. If they had such an enemy, it would be simply hopeless. Many stall owners who originally planned to deceive people almost fainted at this time. Suddenly, they had a feeling of wanting to stop. Sooner or later, they would encounter a ghost if they walked too much at night. Sooner or later, they would kick an iron plate if they did too many bad things. If they encountered such a person again, wouldn't they be miserable? Zhu Yan also didn't expect Yi Shiwen to have such strength. No wonder he looked so fearless. I thought he was fearless because he didn't know. Now it seems that he has a card up his sleeve. Sir, save me, save me. The middle-aged stall owner screamed and asked the golden-striped horned tiger for help. Chapter 25:01. Everyone shuddered at the sight of the Sinluo Ghost Tribe's experts, who had been so majestic just a moment ago, being oppressed like dogs at this moment. Sure enough, this is the Kerfus Road. It hasn't been open for so long that they have forgotten what this place is. For them to be able to cultivate to this level, Almost all of them had once dominated a certain era in a certain place. Some of them were even legends in a certain world to this day. However, this was not a place where they could act presumptuously. Geniuses were common here. All kinds of monstrous freaks from various eras ran amok. An inconspicuous guy might be an invincible monstrous genius of a certain era. The era of the Kerfurst Road's opening was too long ago. No one knew how many monstrous geniuses were active in it. The guy in front of them was probably not far from those monstrous geniuses. Many people were terrified. It was not uncommon to encounter a few monstrous geniuses here. If they were to kick an iron plate like this guy, wouldn't it be a dead end for them? Although everyone knew that those world-famous evildoers had already gone to the upper heavens in search of the fabled opportunities, it was still unknown to them. However, who knew if there were a few monstrous geniuses hidden among them? It was also possible for those monsters to turn back halfway. All in all, anything was possible in this world. Didn't they see that the Azura Ghost Tribe guy had even lost the Ghost Emperor's eye? It could be said that he had suffered a heavy loss. The golden striped horned tiger looked at Yi Shiwen coldly and said, "Human, hand over the golden-backed dragon carp, and I will let you live today. Otherwise, you won't be able to bear the consequences." The golden-striped horned tiger didn't care about the Azura Ghost Tribe guy at all. For it was not important at all. All it wanted was the golden-backed dragon carp. If it wasn't for Yi Shiwen's attack just now, it might have swallowed him in one bite. "I'd like to see what consequences I can't bear. Call your master out. I'd like to see who is so powerful," Yi Shiwen said indifferently. "Human, it seems that you're really tired of living." The golden-striped horned tiger coldly looked at Yi Shiwen. In an instant, it let out a huge roar and instantly transformed into a huge, ferocious tiger. It pounced towards Yi Shiwen. This was the condensation of its martial will. It was very terrifying. Boom! There was a huge explosion. Yi Shiwen punched out. It was just a simple punch, but it directly blasted into the tiger. The tiger was smashed into pieces on the spot and vanished into thin air. Walalala! Yi Shiwen rushed out of this endless golden light like an ancient emperor. He seemed to have turned into the incarnation of martial arts in a flash. All kinds of martial arts rushed out of his body. "Are you tired of living? I want to see who is tired of living," Yi Shiwen shouted loudly. "Human die." The golden-striped horned tiger instantly transformed into a sturdy middle-aged man. His whole body was full of tiger patterns. There were 2 sharp horns on his head. Then, he punched towards Yi Shiwen. The fist energy twisted into a ferocious tiger in midair, surging wildly between the heavens and the earth, bringing with it a powerful Yuan Qi, bringing with it a burst of Yuan Qi frenzy. Yi Shiwen was not to be outdone. The power of thunder continued to rush out of his body. In an instant, the surrounding area became a sea of thunder and lightning. Both of them were quite restrained in their attacks, but such power was still terrifying. A thunder dragon soared into the sky and clashed with the fierce tiger. It was an authentic battle between a dragon and a tiger. However, after a short while, the fierce tiger with the wind attribute was torn apart and devoured by the thunder dragon on the spot. With infinite power, the thunder dragon rushed towards the golden-striped horned tiger, bringing with it a terrifying wind. The golden-striped horned tiger retreated again and again. Seeing that its attack was broken in an instant, it did not dare to resist. It retreated several steps in a row to avoid Yi Shiwen's attack. It looked at Yi Shiwen coldly. It seemed that it did not expect Yi Shiwen to be so powerful. However, his offensive wasn't slow at all. Meanwhile, a long spear appeared in his hand and instantly shattered the blue dome of heaven. The spear light swallowed and spat out erratically and took the shape of a ferocious tiger. The tiger was constantly spitting out sharp spear light talismans and directly pierced towards Yi Shiwen. "Be careful," Zhu Yin, who was next to him, reminded. "That's a high-grade divine weapon." Yi Shiwen could see that it should have been refined from the shed bones of the elders in his clan. Its power was very terrifying. It was definitely comparable to a high-grade divine weapon. Under the attack of the golden-striped horned tiger, its power was amazing. It should be known that the golden-striped horned tiger itself had the strength of the peak of the eternal realm. With this long spear, even if it faced a master of the sage realm, it was quite likely that it could protect itself. However, in the face of such an attack, Yi Shiwen's expression did not change. He directly blocked the attack with his palm, forcibly resisting the high-grade divine weapon. "You really want to die? See how I directly smash your arm with my spear?" The golden-striped horned tiger roared and directly stabbed out a spear light that could destroy heaven and earth. Bang! The palm directly collided with the tip of the spear, bursting out a dazzling light. The spear light brought with it a terrifying power. Even a master of the eternal realm would be pierced by the spear on the spot and die tragically. The powerful spear light talismans on the spear light were like the sound of heaven. Once it hit a person's body, it could directly blast them to death. Many people closed their eyes. If this spear bombarded this person, they were afraid that this person would be directly pierced through. However, at this time, a golden light suddenly burst out of Yi Shiwen's palm to protect him. Clang! A violent tremor came, and the tip of the spear directly pierced into Yi Shiwen's palm, but it could not move forward at all. It could not even pierce through his skin. On the contrary, along with this long spear, the terrifying power bombarded the arm of the golden-striped horned tiger. This caused the arm of the golden-striped horned tiger to tremble violently. Its eyes widened. Yi Shiwen's defense and strength were far beyond its initial expectations. How could there be someone so powerful? The surrounding people were also completely dumbfounded. They did not see the cruel scene of bone fragments flying. On the contrary, the high-grade divine spear in the golden-striped horned tiger's hand was simply like a toy. It could not do anything to Yi Shiwen at all. His physical body is actually comparable to a high-grade divine weapon. Is he a monster? Some people could not help but gasp. It was not that they had never seen a god with a powerful physical body, but it was extremely rare to see one that was powerful to this extent. The key was that Yi Shiwen's cultivation did not seem to be very high, but he could actually do this. In any case, it was enough to shock people. Strength of tiger roar! The golden-striped horned tiger roared, mobilizing all the spiritual power in its body and instilling it into the long spear. The spear light burst out again, and it was once again raised to a level. It seemed like it was going to pierce through Yi Shiwen's spear. Yi Shiwen opened his eyes. There seemed to be a world being born and destroyed in his eyes, and there were endless great ways floating in it. It was 10 times more amazing. If this is all you have, then you are still far from it. Yi Shiwen smiled coldly. He retracted his palm, instantly turned it into a fist, and blasted it on the tip of the spear. Clang! The violent tremor made a strange sound burst out between heaven and earth. Then, only to see the long spear in the golden-striped horned tiger's hand instantly collapsed and flew out. Its palm was instantly mutilated and burst open, turning into a rain of blood that filled the sky. Ah! The golden-striped horned tiger screamed, and its palm directly burst open. Its whole body retreated again and again. Go! At this time, it finally knew that it had encountered a terrifying master. With its strength, it could almost be said that it was difficult to meet a match in the peak of the undead realm. But now it was beaten up by this human being. Such a character reminded it of those monsters. On the Kurfürst Road, such tyrannical monsters were simply everywhere, and it had accidentally encountered one. Didn't you say that I would be responsible for the consequences? I want to see what the consequences are. Yi Shiwen said coldly, and with a wave of his hand, the long spear actually fell into his hand. The golden-striped horned tiger was depressed and spat out a mouthful of blood. He was born with a noble bloodline, and there were not many who could be stronger than him in his life. In the end, he was beaten up by Yi Shiwen. It was simply a great shame, but he did not rush forward. The guy in front of him was almost as terrifying as the young master. It was not worthwhile to fight him head-on. He would wait until he found the young master and then deal with him. His reaction was very fast, and he immediately turned around to escape. Yi Shiwen sneered and said, "You want to leave now? Aren't you thinking too highly of yourself?" The long spear in his hand, under the urging of his spiritual power, burst out an amazing light, pierced the sky, penetrated the 9 heavens, turned into an amazing beam of light, and chased after the golden-striped horned tiger. Bang! There was another amazing sound, and the long spear cut through the sky on the spot, piercing the golden-striped horned tiger on the spot, and nailing it to the ground. Roar! The golden-striped horned tiger screamed again and again, and blood sprayed out. It constantly struggled, trying to break free, and with great difficulty, it picked up the long spear. Enduring the amazing pain of the long spear piercing through its body, it turned into a ball of light and flew away. Yi Shiwen did not continue to chase. For him, this kind of punishment was enough. The golden-striped horned tiger might be very strong for others, but for him, it was not a threat at all, so he was not worried at all. That golden-striped horned tiger was actually defeated and fled. He is really a monster, not a normal person, many people exclaimed. In the eyes of everyone, although the golden-striped horned tiger was strong, it was still a normal person, and Yi Shiwen in front of them looked like a monster. For a moment, everyone was in an uproar. Chapter 2502. Everyone was dumbfounded. It was as if they had seen something impossible. They were all gods and had seen a lot of things in their lives. However, they were still shocked today. This person was not any monster or monster that they knew. It was very likely that he was a newly risen monster or monster. Not only in ancient times, there were monsters and monsters in modern times. In fact, there would be some monsters and monsters that shook the world in every era, and they were strong enough to compete with those monsters in ancient times. Of course, generally speaking, such people would only show their power in the later period of the Curfirst Road, but they were already very strong in the early period. If it wasn't any of the monstrous geniuses that they knew of, then it was very likely that they had risen in the past 100,000 years. Many people began to wonder who this person was. With such strength, he definitely couldn't be a nobody. But compared to ordinary demigods, they were less sensitive to the slightest movement in this aspect. Unless it was a famous place like the Curfirst Road, it would not be possible to reach their ears overnight. Otherwise, they might spend tens of thousands of years in closed-door training. How could they have the time to pay attention to the newly emerged geniuses? At this time, they also sent out the messenger talismans one after another. They wanted to find out the background of this person, lest they accidentally kicked an iron plate, which would be a complete tragedy. Yi Shiwen did not care whether they were investigating his background or not. Anyway, he did not intend to hide it. This time, he had obtained a golden-backed dragon carp that was about to evolve into a golden-backed dragon carp king. It was a huge harvest. Therefore, even when facing the middle-aged stall owner and the golden-striped horned tiger, he did not kill them directly. Hey, you are really amazing. Your strength should be far more than this. Zhu Yin stepped forward and said with a smile. She seemed to be very familiar with Yi Shiwen. She had a whole new level of respect for Yi Shiwen after watching the battle just now. However, she could also see that Yi Shiwen had not used his full strength. But if you take care of that big cat, you will have a lot of trouble in the future, Zhu Yinner said with a smile. Do you know who raised that big cat? Yi Shiwen shook his head. He did not know. Anyway, you have reminded me of something today. I will treat you to a meal. Do you have time? Yi Shiwen looked at Zhu Yinner and said, I didn't help. I almost ruined your good thing, but I won't let go of a free meal. Zhu Yinner was not embarrassed at all. On the contrary, she was generous. You're new here, so you probably don't know about the best restaurant in the city. Come, let's go and have a feast. This was in stark contrast to the image Yi Shiwen had given before. He originally thought that Zhu Yin was a girl with a princess's temper. Now it seemed that she was a little bit like a princess, but she was not a little girl who was ignorant of the world. With that, Zhu Yin rushed to the center of the city like a ball of fire, leaving behind a string of bell-like laughter. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but laugh as he shook his head, and then followed after them. Hiss, I'm afraid this is really an invincible person. I've just received the news. If I'm not wrong, this person should be the leader of this generation in the Hidden Valley, Yi Shiwen. Someone exclaimed. he received the reply the fastest. It might be because the people of his force were nearby, so they quickly found out Yi Shiwen's identity and origin. Of course, this was also related to Yi Shiwen's not hiding his identity. Is this person very powerful? Someone asked. He had just come out of closed-door training not long ago, so there were many things he was not clear about. This was very normal among the gods. They often went into closed-door training for thousands of years, or even tens of thousands of years, so it was common for them to not be clear about current affairs. Powerful, very powerful. This person has only been cultivating for more than 2,000 years, but his strength has improved by leaps and bounds. The latest news I received said that he was already at the peak of the eternal realm 1,000 years ago. No wonder the golden-striped horned tiger was not his opponent. He is indeed an extremely powerful existence. Many of the surrounding ancient gods gasped. It was not that they had not seen ancient freaks and geniuses. It was not too surprising for him to prove his Tao in a mere 2,000 years. What was more terrifying was that he was already at the peak of the eternal realm more than 1,000 years ago. Wasn't that him? Didn't he only spend more than 1,000 years to prove his Tao all the way and improve his cultivation to a level that they could only look up to? If so, I'm afraid he is another monster of this generation. If this goes on, I'm afraid it will not take tens of thousands of years for him to reach the king realm. Some people showed an envious look on their faces. They had cultivated for so many years, but they were still struggling in the eternal realm. At most, they had just broken through to the eternal realm, so they could only wander around in this lower heaven. But this junior, in a mere 2,000 years, had already reached a realm that they might not be able to reach in their lifetime. This feeling was simply a slap in the face. Moreover, it was the kind of slap that made a lot of noise. It was really infuriating to compare oneself with others. If this goes on, it will be interesting. This Yi Shiwen has cultivated to this level in just 2,000 years. He should be a monster of this generation. But the person behind the golden-striped horned tiger is not an ordinary person. Now that you mention it, I remember. Could it be Wu Ziyu of the Wu brothers? Hiss, if it's him, then I'm afraid this matter will be really lively. His subordinate was beaten up, and with his temper, how can he let it go? And Yi Shiwen doesn't seem to have any intention of leaving. This time, I'm afraid there will be a fierce battle between a dragon and a tiger. At the same time, Yi Shiwen and Zhu Yan had arrived at the largest restaurant in the city, the Azure Sky Tower. Let me tell you, this Azure Sky Tower is considered to have a background. Many cities in the 33 heavens have their branches, and the master behind them is Master by Tian. With his strength, how many people dare to not give him face? Zhu Yan introduced to Yi Shiwen. She also guessed that not only was it Yi Shiwen's first time in this city, but it was also the first time he entered the Kerfus Road. This time when the Kerfus Road opened, many monstrous geniuses in the world also did not want to be left out, and wanted to go in to find their own opportunities. Perhaps they were not qualified to compete for the fortune of the emperor, but in the Kerfus Road, there were far more opportunities and fortunes. On the contrary, it was a feast of the gods. Even if they were not qualified to compete for the fortune of the emperor, they would often be able to gain something. Wasn't she the same? Master by Tian is also a very famous and powerful existence in the ancient times. Rumor has it that someone saw him fighting against a king-level powerhouse outside without being at a disadvantage. He is very strong, said Zhu Yan. Yi Shiwen could not help but be slightly moved. He was also very clear about what it meant to be able to fight against a king-level powerhouse. Even if it was only against a powerhouse in the early stage of the king level, it meant that his strength was enough to run rampant in the Kerfus Road in the 33 heavens. No wonder he could open a restaurant in the 33 heavens. It was not surprising that he had such a powerful background. Indeed, Yi Shiwen nodded. Zhu Yan saw that Yi Shiwen was only slightly moved and then returned to normal. She could not help but be a little surprised. Normally, people would not be so calm after hearing about Master by Tian's achievements. She could also see that Yi Shiwen was not the kind of person who forcibly suppressed the shock in his heart, but he was really just surprised. His state of mind was not ordinary, and he really had the belief that he was invincible. Normal people just heard that Master by Tion could fight against a king-level powerhouse, and they would not have any thoughts of fighting against him. However, he was only slightly surprised. This kind of determination was already shocking. Of course, this was also related to strength. Having enough strength was called having a card up his sleeve. If not, then one did not know the immensity of heaven and earth, and summer insects could not talk about ice. However, Yishuan did not look like an arrogant person. Did he really have the confidence to fight against Master by Tion now or in the future? Yishuan naturally did not know that Zhu Yin could analyze so much from his reaction, but he could also see that this woman was indeed not ordinary. Master by Tion is too far away. Let's not worry about it for now. However, you just beat up the Golden Horned Tiger. Is it appropriate to stay here and not leave? Zhu Yin looked at Yishuan and said with a faint smile. Speaking of which, Miss Yin, you should know who is behind this Golden Horned Tiger, right? Yishuan looked at her, not the slightest bit afraid. Calling me Miss Yin is too distant. It is fate that brought us together. You can just call me Yin Zhu Yin said with a smile. Okay. Yishuan did not act pretentious and directly nodded in agreement. This Golden Horned Tiger is very strong, and it does not lose to the geniuses of the same level. If you did not make a move, I do not believe that anyone could beat it like a dog. Zhu Yin said with a smile, but what really makes people afraid is its background. The master who subdued it is not someone else, but the younger brother of the Wu brothers, Wu Ziyu. Wu Ziyu, is his brother Wu Zimo? Yishuan could not help but ask, hey, you know the two of them? Zhu Yin asked curiously. Wu Ziyu was very famous more than 100,000 years ago. Someone specially mentioned him to me. Yishuan said, still looking indifferent. But in his heart, he was calculating. Wu Zimo was an extremely powerful genius more than 100,000 years ago. The reason why he knew about him was because he found out about Ji Renwang. He was a genius of the same generation as Ji Renwang. Although he was overshadowed by Ji Renwang, he was still a person who stirred up a great storm when he first entered the Kerfus Road. Chapter 2503. In fact, back then, Ji Renwang was the best in his generation. Not to mention that generation, even many other monstrous geniuses were overshadowed by him. It could be said that in the last Kerfus Road, no one was more famous than him. Therefore, many people had the impression that there was only one Ji Renwang in the current generation. That meant that Ji Renwang was indeed very strong, but it did not mean that the people of the same generation were not strong. And among the people who competed with Ji Renwang, there was Wu Zimo. Although this Wu Zimo was not as strong as Ji Renwang, he was almost at the top level of the Kerfus Road in the current generation. It could almost be said that without the existence of a monstrous genius like Ji Renwang, he could already do the best that a normal person could do. It was not that he was not strong enough, but Ji Renwang was too strong. This was an existence that was born to become a human king. After 100,000 years of accumulation, in everyone's speculation, Wu Zimo must have entered the ranks of the top group of people in the current Kerfus Road, a terrifying existence that could sweep the Kerfus Road. It was also because of this that he knew about Wu Zimo, and even thought of Wu Zimo from Wu Ziyu. That's true. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, Wu Zimo could be said to be invincible in his generation. If he did not happen to meet a monstrous monster like Ji Renwang, in other times he would basically be invincible in his generation. Zhu Yin was not surprised. With Wu Ziyu's strength and experience, he was indeed qualified to enter the list of the most noteworthy people of the major forces. On the list of the most noteworthy people of many sects, there was only one information about this kind of person, and that was if you met him, escape if you could. Losing to him was not a disgrace. To be able to make a king's sect mark such information, one could imagine how terrifying such a person was. Presumably, your master should have mentioned to you that this person should be marked as a dangerous person. If you can escape, it is not a disgrace. Zhu Yin said. Yishuan grinned and said, one day, I will also remember my name on their list. Ha ha! Zhu Yin let out a burst of silvery laughter. At this time, Yishuan didn't seem like a calm master, but more like a fledgling boy. Yi Shiwen laughed and didn't care about it. He knew that the other party didn't believe him. Any one of them could be called a peerless evildoer. Just being a genius was useless. One must be a genius among the geniuses, an evildoer among evildoers. How could it be that easy? There might not even be a few in 100,000 years. Wu Zimo should be exploring the upper sky now, but Wu Ziyu alone is not easy to deal with. Although Wu Ziyu is not as famous as Wu Zimo, many people say that if Wu Ziyu was not born late, he would be comparable to his brother. He is very powerful. Zhu Yin said with a smile. Oh, there is such a saying? Yi Shiwen faintly smiled, but he didn't seem to care much about it. Wu Zimo was one of the strongest people in the Kerfurst Road today, and Wu Ziyu was said to be on par with his brother. Whether or not it was true, he was certainly not a simple person. What, are you afraid? Zhu Yin said with a smile, and there was a hint of mockery in her tone. What's there to be afraid of, even if he is comparable to his brother? So what? I am destined to surpass his brother. Yi Shiwen said carelessly. You will suffer greatly if you continue like this. I'll give you another piece of news. He seems to have broken into the Sage Realm before the Kerfurst Road. He wants this golden-backed dragon carp king. If I'm not wrong, he should be preparing to break into the next realm. If he gains hundreds of thousands of years of power, it will be enough for him to go further. Zhu Yin said with a smile. Yi Shiwen nodded. He was already prepared. He could see some clues from the golden-striped horned tiger. However, this didn't make him retreat. On the contrary, he was a little excited. Finally, there was a worthy opponent. He might have a chance to release the power that he had accumulated for thousands of years. Seeing that Yi Shiwen was still careless, Zhu Yin had a deeper guess about his background. Perhaps he was even more unfathomable than she had imagined. Speaking of which, I'm also a little curious about you. Even if Wu Ziyu is not secretive, these things are not known by ordinary people. Even I can't see your origin with my Dharma eyes. I wonder if it's convenient for you to tell me? Yi Shiwen took the initiative and asked. It's not inconvenient. I am from the Vermilion Bird clan. Zhu Yin said. Vermilion Bird? Yi Shiwen didn't expect it to be the legendary divine bird. It was a clan even rarer than the Phoenix clan. In the legends, there were 4 sacred beasts, namely the 4 symbols. Among them, the Vermilion Bird represented the south. There were legends of the Vermilion Bird in many worlds. Some people also mixed the Vermilion Bird clan with the Fire Phoenix clan. The Vermilion Bird clan was indeed good at using fire. Among the birds, the Phoenix clan, the Vermilion Bird clan, and the 3 clans of the Golden Crow clan were famous for their powerful fire tribute clans. They were powerful enough to cultivate their own clan's magical power. However, compared to the Phoenix clan, the 3 clans of the Golden Crow clan, which had dominated the heavens, the Vermilion Bird clan was undoubtedly much more low-key. The people of this clan also patrolled various worlds and suppressed the Earth's veins. They belonged to a clan that had contributed to the world, so they were protected by the power of various worlds. The Phoenix clan had suffered heavy losses, and the 3 clans of the Golden Crow clan were directly annihilated. However, the Vermilion Bird clan had always been safe and sound. Although they had never been extremely glorious, they had existed since ancient times. After countless years, the accumulation of strength was very terrifying. They were probably not inferior to the inheritance of an emperor. The people of this clan were relatively rare. There were only a few clansmen, unlike the Phoenix clan, which had many subspecies. Their descendants could be seen in almost every world. It's rare. Zhu Yin smiled brightly as if she was hiding something. Yi Shiwen nodded. If it was the Vermilion Bird clan, then it was not strange. The Vermilion Bird clan was born with the protection of great merit. Unless they were exposed, others would not be able to see their origin. If it's the Vermilion Bird clan, Zhu Yinghuang. Such a name suddenly appeared in Yi Shiwen's mind. This was also a powerful existence that shocked the Kerfurst Road. Since her debut, she had never been defeated. She was a terrifying existence that was invincible in her generation. Her reputation was not weaker than Ji Renwang. That's my brother, Zhu Yin said with a smile. However, Yi Shiwen did not dare to underestimate her. There were not many people in the Vermilion Bird clan, but everyone was a genius. There was not a simple character. This was somewhat similar to the Fallen Angel clan, but there were fewer people than the Fallen Angel clan. Although Zhu Yin was smiling, Yi Shiwen felt that she seemed to be unwilling to mention this name. No wonder the stall owner couldn't do anything to you. Yi Shiwen finally understood why the middle-aged stall owner was so afraid of Zhu Yin. Not only did she have a powerful clan behind her, but she also had such a powerful brother to support her. No wonder she did things without restraint. Don't misunderstand, this has nothing to do with him. I taught that devil a lesson. So he is afraid of me, Zhu Yin said immediately, as if she did not want others to think that this had anything to do with her brother. No matter what, I have the honor to treat the princess of the Vermilion Bird clan to a meal today. Yi Shiwen continued after ordering a few dishes. Ha, Brother Yi, you don't need to be humble. Although I have a bit of a reputation, I mostly rely on my background. You have pushed your way up, and even that arrogant guy, Ao Chaozong, was defeated by you. This is not something an ordinary person can do, Zhu Yin said with a smile. Yi Shiwen was startled. He clearly did not introduce his name, but Zhu Yin knew it. She probably wanted to check his identity, but he did not notice it at all. She must have used a secret method of the Vermilion Bird clan. My name is not worth mentioning. Like you said just now, it is fate that we met. From now on, just call me Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen did not hesitate for long, and he quickly regained his composure. Anyway, he did not intend to hide his identity, and it was only a matter of time before people found out. Seeing that Yi Shiwen had regained his composure, Zhu Yin's mouth twitched, and she said, "Since there is a local tyrant treating me, then I will eat to my heart's content. Waiter, bring me your best dishes, one of each." Yi Shiwen could not help but shake his head and laugh. Today, his wallet was bleeding a lot, but no matter how he looked at it, it was a profit. He was in a good mood, so he did not care about this. During the banquet, Yi Shiwen also ate to his heart's content. Neither of them were refined people, so they did not chew slowly and swallowed slowly. In a short while, they were full. "Let's go. If this continues, we will become monkeys." Yi Shiwen took the lead and said to Zhu Yin. Unknowingly, there were already many people around them. Although they pretended to be ordinary diners, they could not hide it from Yi Shiwen. Presumably, the news of what happened just now had spread, and many people wanted to see something new. "Why? You are not waiting for Wu Ziyu?" Zhu Yin was a little surprised. She clearly felt that Yi Shiwen had the intention to fight with Wu Ziyu. That kind of fanaticism could not be deceived. It doesn't matter, he is just a whetstone. If he wants to come, then come. I will not delay my journey because of his matter, Yi Shiwen said with a smile. Zhu Yin's evaluation of Yi Shiwen went up a level. Even if many people were not afraid of Wu Ziyu, they would not be so indifferent. It was not because they were ignorant, but because they were confident. They had a strong confidence in their own strength. Zhu Yin suddenly smiled and said, "But even if you don't wait for him, he will come looking for you." As soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying pressure pressed down on the city and scrupulously. Chapter 2504. This was an ancient and vicissitude aura. It spread out and instantly seemed to turn the surroundings into a world of stone. It spread out from the void in the distance. Many deities woke up from their seclusion. This stone aura had seeped into the city and scrupulously and was about to petrify all life in the city. Sure enough, it's Wu Ziyu. The two brothers are both divine fetuses born from the same piece of fairy stone. They are born with the martial arts of stone and are known as stone sages. Zhu Yin's eyes sparkled. Although she had heard of Wu Ziyu's name, she had never seen him before. This was the first time. What a strong stone aura. Could it be that Wu Ziyu has appeared? Although the others' reactions were not as fast as Zhu Yin, they were not far behind. They had originally planned to come and watch the show. How could they not understand that Wu Ziyu had appeared? This stone aura is so strong that it has even seeped into the barrier. Could it be that he has completely refined his fairy stone? Someone exclaimed. In that case, Wu Ziyu should have entered the sage realm. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to completely refine his fairy stone. It is impossible for him to do what his brother failed to do. If that is the case, then it is terrifying. The sage realm is enough to dominate the lower heavens. Yi Shiwen was slightly moved. This kind of connate life form was very powerful. They were born with a supreme martial art. But at the same time, they were restricted by their connate body. If they could not refine the body, they could not be considered to have achieved the great path. In that case, the higher they cultivated, the narrower the great path would be. But once they refined the body and achieved the great path, then their cultivation would have a breakthrough in a short period of time, and the improvement would be great. After Wu Zimo refined the body, he rose to become a first-class figure in the Kurfürst Road in a short period of time. Now, Wu Ziyu was like Wu Zimo. After refining the body, he would advance by leaps and bounds. If he could swallow a golden-backed dragon carp king, he would probably be able to replicate the miracle that Wu Zimo created 100,000 years ago in a short period of time. Yi Shiwen smiled coldly. This Wu Ziyu was really courageous. He was actually unscrupulous in the city. When he attacked just now, he was also restrained and did not act recklessly. A city lord might not be enough to make him feel fear, but there were countless large and small forces in the city, and there were many evildoers and monsters behind them. It was just like how the Azure Sky Tower was the property of young Master Bai Tian. Who would dare to mess around here? Wu Ziyu, what are you trying to do? Someone shouted loudly, unable to see him act so arrogantly here. Many people were in an uproar. As expected, it was Wu Ziyu. They all swept their divine senses up into the sky and saw a young man dressed in white standing in midair. His handsome face carried a somewhat cold expression. He was tall and slender, looking like a dragon among men. However, his expression was unusually cold. His body seemed to have turned into a world of stone, suppressing all the other great paths, leaving only the boundless stone path. Many people's eyes were even more shocked and fearful. It seemed that this was not a deliberate leak. Perhaps it was because he had just broken through and was unable to truly control it, so some of it was leaked. And just this little leak was already so terrifying. If he completely leaked it, what would happen? The person who injured my servant and stole my golden-backed dragon carp. Come out. I only want him to die. It has nothing to do with you. Wu Ziyu said slowly, his voice cold and ruthless. Seems like you're here for me. Yi Shiwen smiled faintly. His entire body instantly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already above the city. You're the guy who stole my golden-backed dragon carp? Wu Ziyu looked coldly at Yi Shiwen and then said. He seemed to be constantly sizing up Yi Shiwen. That's right. If you want to fight, come with me. Yi Shiwen took a big stride and flew out of the city. He did not want to fight inside the city. Otherwise, once he let go, no matter how many enchantments there were in the city, it would be extremely easy to have problems. Don't go! Wu Ziyu shouted loudly and directly chased after him. Not far behind him, a fiery light chased after him. If it was not Zhu Yin'er, who else could it be? After Zhu Yin'er, many people directly chased after him, wanting to see the battle between the two. In particular, many people had also figured out Yi Shiwen's origin. In their hearts, they were even more expectant. Both of them were invincible figures of this generation, and they could be considered to have outstanding military achievements. Although Wu Ziyu was famous, Yi Shiwen was not bad either. Thousands of years ago, he had already defeated the Dragon Clan's pride, Ao Chaozong, and became famous for a time. The battle between the two contemporary pride of the generation was no less attractive than the battle between those monstrous figures. Even if some of the big figures did not follow in person, they all swept out their divine senses and chased after them. Yi Shiwen's figure flew all the way out of the city for hundreds of kilometers before finally stopping. As soon as he stopped, the stone chi spread over, constantly flickering with light and shadow, forming a world of stone chi. This stone chi formed on the spot, instantly turning into a world, suppressing down. The stone chi could be said to have chased after Yi Shiwen all the way out. As soon as they stopped, they attacked him. Child's play. Yi Shiwen sneered, raised his spiritual power, and blasted out a punch. The terrifying fist energy blasted out like a cannonball, blasting through the sky, directly blasting into the world of stone chi. Boom! Yi Shiwen suddenly penetrated countless layers of the world of stone chi. In the center of the world of stone chi, a figure suddenly appeared. An even more terrifying stone chi swept down, condensing into a piece of immortal stone, suppressing Yi Shiwen on the spot. Yi Shiwen was not in a hurry. His palm directly turned into a sky-flipping seal. With a flip of his palm, it seemed that the entire world had turned upside down. A burst of darkness appeared. It was very terrifying, and it blasted towards the group of stone chi. Boom! Yi Shiwen's sky-flipping seal shattered the stone chi on the spot. Boom! A series of explosions sounded, and the world of stone chi collapsed, revealing the figure of Wu Ziyu. His speed was very fast. Almost as soon as Yi Shiwen arrived, he had already arrived. Many people behind him had just arrived, and they were a little dumbfounded when they saw such a fierce battle. This is just the beginning, and there is already such an intense battle. If this continues, won't the sky and earth shatter? Many people looked at this scene, and they were a little scared. If it were them, they might not even be able to withstand this move and would be blasted to death on the spot. They could all see that the power of these two people had almost exceeded everyone's imagination. They might not be able to handle one of these two moves even if they tried their best. Wu Ziyu did not continue to attack, but looked up and down at Yi Shiwen, and then asked, "Tell me your name." He did not even want to ask for his name before, but now he felt that Yi Shiwen was qualified to tell him his name. Yi Shiwen said lightly, "So it's you." Wu Ziyu also seemed to remember who Yi Shiwen was. They were both rising figures of this generation, and he had more or less heard of them, unlike those old people who had not heard of him at all. "Ao Chaozong was defeated by your hands." Wu Ziyu said lightly, "You are still considered a figure, but if you think that you can be mentioned in the same breath as me just because you defeated Ao Chaozong, then you are gravely mistaken. Even Ao Chaozong would not dare to be presumptuous in front of me." Everyone pricked up their ears. This was related to another Heaven's Pride expert, Ao Chaozong. Although Ao Chaozong had been defeated by Yi Shiwen, it didn't damage his prestige. After all, he was still high and mighty in their eyes. It wasn't that Ao Chaozong wasn't strong enough, but Yi Shiwen was too tyrannical. Almost everyone who had seen that battle had the same opinion. Ao Chaozong was born in the Golden Dragon race of the Dragon race, and could be said to have a noble bloodline, but Wu Ziyu was not bad either. He was a divine fetus bred from an immortal stone, and his roots were very noble and extraordinary. On the contrary, Yi Shiwen had not heard of any extraordinary background, and only knew that he swept his way up, and among the three people, he knew the least. But how could someone who could defeat Ao Chaozong be simple? Whether he dares to be presumptuous in front of you or not, it has nothing to do with me. Moreover, I don't think it will be true. Yi Shiwen smiled coldly. In his opinion, Wu Ziyu was more or less blowing his own trumpet. Ao Chaozong was in his hands, but with his arrogance, how could anyone force him to not dare to act presumptuously with mere coercion? Wu Ziyu frowned slightly. Yi Shiwen was more difficult to deal with than he had imagined, and he did not take him seriously at all. Hand over the golden-backed dragon carp, or else don't even think of leaving here alive today, Wu Ziyu said coldly. So, what if I don't hand it over? Who do you think you are, the king of heaven? You still want to steal my golden-backed dragon carp? Yi Shiwen said without showing any weakness. Wu Ziyu's expression became even colder, and he said, "Since you are not willing to hand it over, then use your life to exchange. Anyway, killing you is the same." Walala! The stone energy on Wu Ziyu's body instantly soared, and the surrounding horizon turned into a kingdom of stone. Die! Along with his loud shout, those stone dragons condensed in the air and fiercely pounced towards him. Thousands upon thousands of stone dragons condensed and entrenched in the air. It looked spectacular and crowded around Wu Ziyu. Wu Ziyu stood on the largest stone dragon with an ice-cold look on his face. He looked like an ancient god who was destroying the world. Ordinary people couldn't even imagine the terrifying strength boiling around him. I said before, it's just a small trick. If it's only at this level, then it's still far from enough. Yi Shiwen let out a long roar, and a stone dragon exploded in the sky, turning into powder. Chapter 25:05. Yi Shiwen smashed the stone dragon with just one punch, turning it into talisman fragments that drifted everywhere. Each of these stone dragons was made of endless stone chi, condensed from the talismans of the stone path. They were very terrifying, comparable to gold and iron, but they were completely unable to do anything to Yi Shiwen. "Do you think this is all?" Wu Ziyu said coldly. Above his head, a little immortal spiritual chi appeared, as if it was the starting point of all the stone chi, and also the origin of all the stone chi. This was a little bit of his immortal true spirit. More stone chi spread out from his body, forming a frenzy. Whoosh! With a shrill sound, the stone dragons were like sharp swords all over the sky, piercing through space and sweeping towards Yi Shiwen. The power he displayed had surpassed the peak of the imperishable realm, reaching a realm that no one had ever reached before or since. Sure enough, he has cultivated to the sage realm. What terrifying power! An existence who was also at the peak of the imperishable realm could not help but say with a trembling voice. Even though they were far away, just the aura alone made them feel a kind of unparalleled power. Wu Ziyu, who had cultivated to the sage realm, was almost invincible. Unless there was also an existence of the sage realm, it was impossible to compete with him. Bang! 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 Yi Shiwen's speed was extremely fast, shuttling through the stone dragons, constantly bombarding them. Every punch shattered the sky, shattering a stone dragon. Any one of these stone dragons that filled the sky could easily kill a powerful, imperishable realm master, but they kept exploding in his hands. This scene also stunned the people watching from afar. Was this still a human? How could he be so terrifying? His physical body was simply tyrannical and amazing. I said, if this is all you can do, you are still far from it. Yi Shiwen's figure was very relaxed, and his figure was also very leisurely. So fast. Zhu Yin saw Yi Shiwen's figure constantly shuttling, but not a single stone dragon could hit him. She originally thought that she had overestimated Yi Shiwen, but in fact, at this time, she realized that he seemed to have underestimated her. Even though Wu Ziyu had used tyrannical power that exceeded the imperishable realm, he still could not do anything to him. Who the hell is this person? At this moment, even Wu Ziyu's expression changed slightly. He originally thought that Yi Shiwen was only an ordinary, imperishable stage. Although he had some ability, compared to him, he was still far from it. He didn't expect that Yi Shiwen's hidden strength would be so strong. He had been very confident in himself. Although there were countless monsters on the Kerfus Road, he was at least one of them and would not lose to anyone. "You're distracted." While he was thinking about this, Yi Shiwen suddenly rushed in front of him. Then, he heard a loud sound of breaking through the air, and the space suddenly shattered. Yi Shiwen had rushed in front of him without him knowing. Human Dao Fist. He punched out and instantly turned into a human path world. He punched out and shattered the layers of space, directly blasting Wu Ziyu's real body behind the endless space. Bang! Caught off guard, Wu Ziyu was actually sent flying. Cracks began to appear on his chest, injuring his vital energy. Xiao! There was a loud sound of breaking through the air. Wu Ziyu directly crashed into a divine mountain, dragging out a huge crack. How? How is this possible? Wu Ziyu has clearly displayed power that exceeds the imperishable realm. How is he still injured? Many people stared with their eyes wide open. If Wu Ziyu was only unable to easily take down Yi Shiwen before, it could be pardoned. Now that Yi Shiwen sent Wu Ziyu flying with a punch, it was a bit against everyone's understanding. In everyone's view, when a sage realm cultivator faced an imperishable realm deity, they had unimaginable suppressive power. It was not that there were none who could compete with them, But Wu Ziyu obviously could not be an ordinary Sage Realm cultivator. He should be one of the best. Bang! With a bang, the entire divine mountain suddenly exploded. Wu Ziyu's figure jumped out from within. He looked a bit disheveled, but the cracks on his chest had already been healed. With his cultivation and methods, it was a piece of cake. At this moment, his expression was extremely ugly. Not only had he not taken down Yi Shiwen, but he had also been sent flying by a punch. It was simply a great humiliation. He did not know if a Sage Realm cultivator being sent flying by an imperishable realm cultivator was unprecedented. But for him, this was already the greatest humiliation in his life. He had never felt this way before. "You have completely angered me," Wu Ziyu said coldly. "So what? I just said that it is impossible for you to defeat me at this level. Use your full strength. Let me see how amazing the Sage Realm is," Yi Shiwen said, not giving in at all. Stone sword. Wu Ziyu put his hands together and created a stone sword from the void. It looked extremely crude, like the stone swords made by people in the Stone Age. However, this stone sword burst out with a chilling aura of stone chi and sword chi. Wu Ziyu's martial Dao cultivation was truly extraordinary. He was actually able to fuse sword chi and stone chi into one. This seemingly crude stone sword was condensed with many talismans of the stone Dao and sword Dao, entangling together to form a terrifyingly powerful divine weapon. The divine radiance constantly flowed on the sword like streams of light. Boom! Under Wu Ziyu's brandishing, the stone sword slashed down, directly blasting towards Yi Shiwen. A huge crack was easily torn in the sky. Stone chi and sword chi crisscrossed everywhere. "Watch out!" Zhu Yin could not help but warn him. The power of this stone sword made even her feel a little fearful. She could not help but warn him, because she saw that Yi Shiwen did not dodge at all and punch forward. She had seen such a scene before when Yi Shiwen dealt with the golden-striped horned tiger. However, how could that golden-striped horned tiger be compared to Wu Ziyu? The two were not at the same level at all. Although the spear of the golden-striped horned tiger was terrifying, it could not be compared to the stone sword at all. Boom! There was a huge explosion like the sound of gold and iron colliding. Yi Shiwen heard Zhu Yin scream, but he did not stop at all and directly punched forward. Endless ripples spread out in an instant, annihilating atoms in the sky, causing endless explosions, forming a shocking tide, forming a huge mushroom cloud, slowly rising. The collision this time contained an astonishing amount of power. In such a terrible explosion, many people's divine thoughts were useless. They could not see clearly at all. They opened their magic eyes one after another and saw clearly. In the midst of it, they saw Yi Shiwen's figure suddenly rushing out, bringing with it a terrifying wave of air that blew away everything. The sword fell directly on Yi Shiwen's fist. It only annihilated the endless power of thunder, but it could not hurt Yi Shiwen's body. It was as if all the power of thunder in his body was concentrated in his fist, contending with the sword chi of the stone sword. Not enough. Not enough. Yi Shiwen's body flashed all kinds of light at the same time. The 5 Emperor's battle suit and the powerful Thunderbolt battle suit were all on his body. It looked like he was an emperor who was on an expedition, powerful and invincible. Chen Xiaoyan grabbed the sword in the stone, a terrifying divine artifact that could not even break through his skin. Chen Xiaoyan made use of the momentum to instantly appear before Wu Ziyu. He rushed to attack. What kind of terrifying fleshly body is this? I have never seen anyone with such a powerful fleshly body. It is said that Wu Ziyu's sword in the stone is a magic artifact that was born alongside him. As he grew, it continued to grow. No one has ever dared to use their fleshly body to block it. Yes, no matter how powerful a person is, they will be cut in half by the sword chi. If they are contaminated by the stone chi, they will be directly petrified. However, Yi Shiwen seems to have a battle suit to isolate the stone chi, so he will not be petrified. Zhu Yin's eyes were like flames. This was her magic eyes. She clearly saw that the power of the 5 elements was circulating in Yi Shiwen's body, isolating all the stone chi. Therefore, the stone chi that could make others pale at the mention of it could not do anything to him at all. This also made one of Wu Ziyu's trump cards completely ineffective. What was the point of a trump card that could not be used at all? It was completely meaningless. But at the same time, she was also very clear that it looked simple, but to isolate the stone chi was not so simple. Because Wu Ziyu's stone chi was brought from the celestial stone, and the quality was very high. Just a little bit was enough to petrify the world. Even if she encountered it herself, she would need to use all her strength to resist the stone chi and the stone sword. She could not be as free as Yi Shiwen, and her body could not forcibly resist the stone sword. He is indeed a monster. If this goes on, maybe one day, he will be added to the list of dangerous people of the major forces, Zhu Yin'er said with a chuckle. Seeing that there was no problem with Yi Shiwen, she was relieved. Bang! At the same time, Yi Shiwen had already punched Wu Ziyu's body again. Suddenly, his chest was smashed again, and his whole body fell 100 miles away like a meteor. When the crowd saw this scene, they were dumbfounded. It was not that they had not seen the tyrannical Eternal Realm, which was said to be able to fight against the Sage Realm, but that was only the weakest existence in the Sage Realm. They had never heard of a strong person like Wu Ziyu being abused like this. 2 punches sent him flying twice. Wu Ziyu was probably completely crazy. This was a great shame. It was really embarrassing for a Sage Realm to be abused like this by an Eternal Realm. Many people were even muttering in their hearts. Was he really only in the Eternal Realm? Chapter 2506. Many people were muttering to themselves. Was this really just the imperishable realm? It was simply too freakish. They could not believe that this was just an imperishable realm. Even with their vast knowledge, they had never heard of anyone being able to do this, to be able to compete with the Sage Realm with just their own strength. No, even Wu Ziyu, who was in the Sage Realm, had been beaten miserably. This was not just about being able to compete with him. Wu Ziyu continued to roar like a wounded beast. This was the second time. If the first time was pardonable, the second time was truly an indescribable humiliation. His black hair fluttered in the wind, and the entire world seemed to have fallen into a stone aura. The world was collapsing inch by inch, and the stone aura that filled the air was like an ancient divine mountain. Every strand of it was extremely heavy, and even a little bit of it could penetrate a world. It was extremely terrifying. All of a sudden, the world seemed to have stepped back into the Stone Age. I'll talk. You. Don't underestimate me. I'm not at this level either. Wu Ziyu roared, and the aura on his body was increasing every minute and second. He had hidden most of his strength before, and now he had completely erupted. As an expert of the Sage Realm, he was definitely not at this level. Moreover, his accumulation was really deep to an unbelievable level. He had just broken through and was already at the peak of the early stage of the imperishable realm. This was definitely not the little bit of strength that he had shown. It was just that he did not want to affect the foundation that he had just entered the Sage Realm, and most of his strength was used to consolidate his foundation. Now, he had been sent flying by Yi Shiwen twice in a row, and his pride had been seriously trampled. It was extremely embarrassing. Now he could not care so much and released all of it. So strong. This chi has already affected all martial arts within a radius of 10,000 miles. Many people instantly felt an unprecedented pressure crushing down on them, making them feel that all the muscles in their bodies were stiff, as if they had encountered an ancient giant beast. It was just an invisible pressure, and it made them feel unprecedented pressure. I feel that his stone path is robbing my martial arts. Damn it. How can this be? The martial arts in my body are not listening. Not good. Many people quickly operated their martial power to suppress it. This terrible chi had even affected their martial arts. And this was just the aftermath. Yi Shiwen, who was in the center, was suffering from a terrible pressure. What will you do? Zhu Yin'er looked at Yi Shiwen and muttered, Walalala. Yi Shiwen's clothes were constantly fluttering under the influence of this terrifying chi. He just looked at Wu Ziyu coldly, without any expression. Wu Ziyu's expression was somewhat sinister as he said angrily. So, don't underestimate me too much. He had never had such a strong desire to prove himself. He just wanted to prove that he was not that weak. Whoosh! He took a step forward, and his figure directly penetrated the void, directly tearing through the terrifying sound barrier. With the sound of a clap of thunder, a stone dragon condensed and spat out a thunderbolt in the air. This was another kind of mutated thunder, stone thunder. In fact, there were countless types of thunder and lightning, and stone thunder was also a very special kind. Compared to the emu green thunder, it was a little less gentle, and its power was a notch higher and more domineering. Boom! With a loud roar, this stone thunder exploded in the air in front of Yishiwen. The terrifying explosive force directly blew up the power of thunder on the surface of Yishiwen's body. With the degree of defense of his thunder battle armor, it was actually blown up in an instant. The domineering degree of this stone thunder was far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Although it was not able to hurt Yishiwen, it was still very impressive compared to the battle where Yishiwen completely had the upper hand. Ha ha! Yishiwen, you can block it for a while, but can you block it for a lifetime? Wu Ziyu laughed loudly and waved his hand. In an instant, thousands of stone dragons condensed and formed. Thousands of stone dragons all opened their mouths and spat out powerful stone thunder. Rumble! A series of explosions rang out in an instant. Countless stones and thunder exploded at the same time. The terrifying power instantly formed a terrifying ripple that spread out in all directions. Looking from afar, it suddenly formed a terrifying pillar of air that rushed into the sky. This pillar of air directly swept a terrifying range of thousands of miles. Whoosh! A figure directly jumped out from it, leaping out from the endless energy of the stone thunder. Who else could it be other than Yishiwen? He stepped on the bottom of his feet, and a mass of thunder energy appeared. He almost teleported away from the range of the explosion. The thunder battle armor on his whole body was also blown to pieces. Even his golden body was affected. Let's see where else you can run to. The current you looks like a rat running around everywhere. Ha ha! Wu Ziyu laughed wildly and said, I want you to understand that your little bit of strength is nothing compared to the real Sage Realm. Just you alone die. His expression was ferocious, as if he had thought of something extremely carefree. Hundreds of stone dragons formed and rushed towards Yishiwen, and then exploded in the air. This kind of attack seemed to be endless. He was very strong, and his spiritual power was unimaginably thick. This kind of attack, for an ordinary, imperishable realm cultivator, would be able to exhaust their cultivation power in just one attack. It could be used as a big move. But for him, such an attack was actually just an ordinary attack. The strength of the divine fetus brood in the fairy stone was far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Boom! 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 The terrifying attack continued to explode, and Yishiwen just kept retreating. Although the stone thunder could not seriously injure him, it still made him quite embarrassed. The thunder battle armor constantly condensed and was constantly blown apart. Run, run, run to the ends of the earth. It's really too ugly. Tisk! Yishiwen stopped. It's really not interesting at all. You are indeed much stronger than before. But compared to me, you still have no chance of winning. He put on the 5 Emperors' battle armor again, as if a powerful 5 Elements Emperor had been reborn and appeared in the world, and 4 powerful martial arts incarnations merged into his body. Boom! 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 His strength was also increasing, soaring every minute and every second, and in an instant, it rose to an unprecedented level. It's not just that you hid your strength. If this is all you have, you still can't beat me. Yishiwen crushed hundreds of stone dragons that had pounced towards him. He had been constantly retreating due to the impact of the stone dragons. However, he had now crushed them with a single slap. Such an increase in strength caused the surrounding people to be taken aback. They all felt like they were sucking in a breath of cold air. It's really a monster. Is that 4 martial arts incarnations? What a monster! Someone said in a trembling voice. These people were all powerful deities, and they also had their own understanding of martial arts. Some of them had condensed their own martial arts incarnations, but they were also very clear that it was very difficult to condense a second martial arts incarnation. Not to mention that corresponding powerful martial arts would be needed, the difficulty would also increase exponentially, and the difficulty of the third martial arts incarnation was not to mention the second. Almost all those who could condense four martial arts incarnations were old monsters who had cultivated for a long time, and even so, they were very rare. In the current generation, no one had ever heard of anyone being able to condense four martial arts incarnations. In a sense, the stronger the martial arts incarnation, the stronger the person would be. Every time a martial arts incarnation was condensed, the person's strength would increase exponentially. If his strength was originally at the peak of the immortal realm, then he might really be able to fight against the sage realm. Someone exclaimed, at the very least, they had not seen how terrifying the four martial arts incarnations would be after merging. Everyone could feel that Yi Shiwen had suddenly become extremely terrifying, including Wu Ziyu, who could feel that Yi Shiwen had become unprecedentedly strong. People say that you might be able to be mentioned in the same breath as your brother. But even so, there is nothing to be proud of, because I am destined to surpass your brother, Yi Shiwen said calmly, and what many people thought was very arrogant words. What? Did I hear wrong? He actually said that he is destined to surpass Wu Zimo? No way. I admit that he is indeed very strong, but it is too difficult to surpass Wu Zimo. There are not many in the current generation who have such qualifications. Even among the many geniuses, Wu Zimo is a famous and extremely powerful existence. Does he really think so? Arrogant, Wu Ziyu shouted, and his expression was extremely angry. Who do you think you are? Even I can only temporarily look up to him. Who do you think you are? How dare you say you are going to surpass him? Wu Ziyu instantly took a step forward, and the stone dragon under his feet rushed out, crossing the sky and rushing towards Yi Shiwen. The stone sword in his hand was slashed horizontally, and a terrifying power was boiling. Thousands of stone chi and sword chi were burning, entangled together, and slashed down. Human Path Fist, 6 Paths, Reincarnation. He blasted out a punch, and the power of Human Path twisted out, turning into a huge 6 Paths Reincarnation wheel. The 6 Paths Reincarnation wheel began to spin, and with every spin, the power of the fist increased until it reached its peak. The stone sword and the 6 Paths Reincarnation wheel collided, and after a moment of silence, a piercing sound tore the sky apart. Chapter 2507. It was a truly terrifying collision of power. Wu Ziyu had already unleashed his trump card, and Yi Shiwen's 4 martial arts incarnations were even more shocking. The hidden trump cards of both sides were shockingly powerful. Rumble! The only thing left in the ears of the surrounding people was the roar of the earth-shattering blow, which made everyone dizzy. Even if they had cultivated to their level, there was no way for them to resist at all. No wonder he wasn't shocked at all, even though he knew that Wu Ziyu had entered the Sage Realm. It turns out that he has such a strong foundation, Zhu Yin said with a smirk. Yi Shiwen was giving her more and more surprises. It was hard to imagine how he could cultivate to such an amazing level in just 2,000 years. In the Kurfürst Road, 2,000 years was almost like a child's existence. There were many people who had cultivated for 70,000 to 80,000 years, not to mention those geniuses who continued to cultivate as the Kurfürst Road opened again and again. But even so, they were not as amazing as this person looked. Even if he were to fight against Wu Ziyu, who had completely unleashed his power, he was not inferior at all. That was Yi Shiwen's greatest confidence. Bang! 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 The power of both sides collided desperately. Every collision could set off turbulent waves of spiritual energy. The sound shook thousands of miles, and the scene of space shattering could be seen everywhere. The power of both sides had far exceeded the ordinary masters in the early stage of the Sage Realm. The gods of the Eternal Realm and the Immortal Realm were trembling with fear. Didn't you ask me how I surpassed him? I'll tell you now. It's because of my strength, Yi Shiwen shouted. An infinite golden light tore out of his hands. The power of thunder attached to it directly tore the sword chi and stone chi in the sky. Layers of defense were torn apart, and countless layers of space were torn apart. Wu Ziyu's body was directly seen, and he smashed his fist at him. The fist energy twisted and turned into the wheel of the 6 paths of reincarnation and smashed down. Wu Ziyu had no time to attack, so he could only desperately let go. Bang! Yi Shiwen's fist smashed directly on the body of the stone sword, completely ignoring the stone energy of the stone sword. Although it tried to spread to Yi Shiwen's body, it could not do anything to him. It was directly wiped out by the power of thunder. Buzz! The sword in the stone was struck by a terrifying force, and it shook violently. Wu Ziyu's hands were also shaking violently. His arms felt numb, and he was unable to control the sword in the stone. How is this possible? How can this power be so strong? Wu Ziyu was shocked. He was born as a stone immortal core to begin with, and his physical body was top-notch as well. His original body was made up of that piece of immortal stone, so how could it not be powerful? He had never been at a disadvantage when fighting against many races with powerful physical bodies. But now, in front of Yi Shiwen, he had been defeated time and time again. Even if he burst out with all his strength, he still did not have the upper hand when facing Yi Shiwen. More importantly, Yi Shiwen's level was lower than his. No matter what kind of strength he displayed, he had not reached the sage plane. This was an ironclad fact. This made him feel even more humiliated. Each of Yi Shiwen's punches contained earth-shattering, thunderous energy. This was also the reason why his arm had become numb after being punched by Yi Shiwen. However, this was not an excuse. Falling into a disadvantageous position was falling into a disadvantageous position. Roar! Wu Ziyu roared and took the initiative to attack. The stone sword slashed out a shocking light and slashed towards Yi Shiwen. Ha, come again? Yi Shiwen did not give in at all. He blasted out the 6 paths of reincarnation, fist one after another. The fusion of the 4 martial arts incarnations made his magical power explode in an instant. Using the 6 paths of reincarnation fist was not difficult at all. Bang! After another collision, Wu Ziyu took several steps back before he managed to stand firm. But then Yi Shiwen had already rushed up to him, and he also did not want to be outdone. He confronted Yi Shiwen tit for tat. Boom! 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 Everyone only saw 2 figures constantly colliding in the void, like 2 meteorites colliding in the sky. It was a terrible scene of the void collapsing everywhere. It's a pity that Wu Ziyu has lost his mind. He is clearly at a disadvantage in the collision of physical strength, but he does not know how to restrain himself. Zhu Yin suddenly said from the side. There was a bit of disdain in her tone, as if she did not care about Wu Ziyu at all. If he had used the realm of the sage realm to suppress himself, then this would not have happened. It is clearly unwise. Many people only realized at this time that it was indeed so. If a person could challenge someone of a higher level, he must have the confidence. At this time, fighting recklessly in the area that he was best at was tantamount to asking for a beating. But at this time, Zhu Yin was still able to observe all this so calmly. This woman was not ordinary. Everyone looked over at this time, and sure enough, Wu Ziyu was still forcibly clashing with Yi Shiwen. But each time he retreated, the steps became larger, and each recovery became more difficult. In the battle with Yi Shiwen, he was completely at a disadvantage. At the beginning, he was only slightly behind, but now this gap had expanded to a great extent. His movements were not agile, and half of his body was numb from Yi Shiwen's bombardment. Again, I will finish you with one punch. Yi Shiwen's footsteps flickered, and he secretly used the flickering thunder step. The entire sky seemed to have stopped moving. His body erupted with a brilliant light, like a great sun in the sky, and fiercely rushed towards Wu Ziyu. It was as if the attention of all the people in the universe had been drawn over. He was like a fierce god that had existed since the beginning of time. A single punch from him was enough to shatter a world into pieces. Roar! Wu Ziyu roared, raised the stone sword, and collided with Yi Shiwen. Rumble! The space completely shattered, and then Wu Ziyu screamed, and his whole body flew out. Many gods opened their magic eyes and saw clearly. His whole body actually had cracks, densely crawling all over his body. He was like a porcelain man that had experienced the most intense collision, and he was almost shattered on the spot. Bang! His body flew out like a cannonball, and he crashed into a mountain range, tearing a crack that was thousands of miles long, and setting off a sky full of smoke and dust. So strong. Everyone's eyes widened. Just one punch had shattered Wu Ziyu's body. This kind of strength was not something that ordinary people could do. They didn't even dare to think about it. He really was a monster. This was the only evaluation left in their hearts, and they were so shocked that they couldn't even speak. "I'm going to kill you." Wu Ziyu directly rushed out, and the stone aura on his body shot up into the sky. The world around him instantly turned into a world of stone paths, and it was clearly visible. Stone cities all appeared. This was a complete world, and there were even many powerful creatures born from stone aura roaring in it. Divine Kingdom? He's finally going to use his trump card, but isn't it too late now? Zhu Yin immediately recognized Wu Ziyu's final move. For those in the Sage Plane, the greatest thing that could suppress those in the imperishable plane was undoubtedly the Divine Kingdom. Normally speaking, after reaching the Sage Plane, one's own strength was enough to completely suppress those in the imperishable plane, not to mention Wu Ziyu, a genius among geniuses, who was highly likely to become a monstrous existence. But he didn't expect to be completely suppressed by Yi Shiwen in terms of conventional strength, forcing him to use the Divine Kingdom. If he had used the Divine Kingdom at the beginning, it could only be said that a lion would need to use its full strength to fight a rabbit. But now, it more or less felt somewhat miserable. Many Eternal Realm suddenly opened their eyes wide, trying to understand the mystery of the Divine Kingdom, which would also be beneficial for their future advancement. Finally, he's going to use the power of the Divine Kingdom to suppress me. In an instant, Wu Ziyu's power climbed to another extreme. This kind of power no longer belonged to him, but the power of the Divine Kingdom, a kind of power of a small world. At this moment, he seemed to have incarnated into the god of creation, controlling all power. Yi Shiwen, I'm going to suppress you to death today. In front of the Sage Realm, your strength is too weak. Wu Ziyu roared ferociously, and the broken skin on his body was also recovering at an even more shocking speed under the support of the power of the Divine Kingdom. He was above the Divine Kingdom, like the Emperor of Stone. Many of the gods nearby retreated frantically, and only stopped after they were tens of thousands of miles away. The power of the Divine Kingdom swept across, making them feel like vomiting blood. Especially the immortal-level gods. They felt like their shells were about to shatter and disintegrate, and all the rules in their bodies were about to burn and break. Only one person could stand steadily, and that was Zhu Yin. Once the Divine Kingdom appeared, it was invincible. The entire Divine Kingdom flew up into the air, and then fiercely rushed towards Yi Shiwen. With the power of the Divine Kingdom, Wu Ziyu really had the power of the Sage of Stone, and his power was increased to an unprecedented level out of thin air. Even some of the gods felt as though they were facing a calamity. In the face of this terrifying Divine Kingdom of Stone, Yi Shiwen did not panic. On the contrary, a look of surprise appeared on his face. Can I break through the Divine Kingdom with one punch? The powerful power in Yi Shiwen's body also erupted in an instant, and lightning and golden light entangled together, rushing into the sky. They formed an extremely powerful beam of light. His strength soared crazily in an instant, as if a small river had instantly turned into a boundless ocean. This time, even Zhu Yin was completely shocked. It was not that she had never seen power more powerful than this, but Yi Shiwen could actually maintain such a terrifying power in the situation of the fierce battle just now. Could it be that he was just fooling around earlier? He did not use his original power at all. Chapter 25:08. Zhu Yin was not the only one who had such doubts in her heart. Almost everyone had such doubts in their hearts. because judging from the strength that Yi Shiwen had burst out, it was not just a little bit, but an increase of several times. There was even some doubt in Zhu Yin'er's eyes. Yi Shiwen's performance just now did not seem like he was holding back. On the contrary, he had already exhausted his full strength in every attack. She believed in her own judgment, and she definitely did not see wrongly. But in the end, Yi Shiwen still burst out with such amazing strength. This had simply exceeded the bottom line of all psychology. Could it be that there is some kind of magic tool that can store power? She was puzzled in her heart. No, if he did not have such strength, even if his power was stored, it would at most be replenished. It is impossible to increase so much all at once. Or could it be that there is some kind of magic tool that limits strength? Many thoughts flashed in her mind in an instant. And at this time, even Wu Ziyu was shocked. He did not expect Yi Shiwen's strength to be so tyrannical, and he had actually hidden his strength. This made him feel like the devil was 10 times stronger, and he had become the typical villain. No matter what strength you have hidden, it is impossible to fight against me. Wu Ziyu's holy kingdom accelerated and suppressed down, directly blasting Yi Shiwen's body. Boom! Yi Shiwen clearly felt that the surrounding principles had suddenly become useless. It could be said that the principles which could be said to be as easy as swinging his arm had suddenly gone out of his control. It made him feel as if he had suddenly fallen into a state of blindness. I will deprive you of all your laws. Wu Ziyu laughed loudly. For a god, the role of laws was naturally needless to say. Just relying on the physical body was indeed very powerful. But if there were no laws, it was equivalent to being deprived of more than half of the combat power. For a god, it was simply a matter of breaking one's own arm. This was why very few people could surpass the level from the eternal realm to the sage realm. The whole world suppressed down, constantly obliterating the protective power of thunder around Yi Shiwen's body. The ground under Yi Shiwen's feet collapsed inch by inch. The power of the holy kingdom above was like the power of a real world suppressing down, making people feel a sense of suffocation. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes passed. Everyone originally thought that Yi Shiwen would be defeated in an instant. However, he didn't collapse. On the contrary, he was getting more and more relaxed. As he released more and more power from his body, he was actually getting more and more relaxed. Yi Shiwen's strength was still tyrannical, even though he had been deprived of his control over the surrounding principles. He couldn't even condense the domain around his body. Moreover, he couldn't even condense it. It firmly blocked the divine kingdom. Surprisingly, he wasn't killed immediately. Why don't you die? No, why don't you die? Who do you think you are? Wu Ziyu roared. He had finally recovered to his peak. He took a step forward and arrived in front of Yi Shiwen. He was the only god in his divine kingdom. Even the space law had been distorted. Therefore, Yi Shiwen hadn't even sensed the fluctuations of the space law when he had appeared. The sword in the stone slashed out an astonishing sword light in the sky. Thousands of rays of light erupted, and it seemed as if an ancient voice was chanting some extraordinary scripture. Then, it converged into a torrent and fiercely slashed towards Yi Shiwen. Bang! Yi Shiwen stiffly received the attack, and the thunderbolt battle armor on his body instantly shattered into pieces. Die! Die! Wu Ziyu kept slashing down. The sword light slashed through the sky and bombarded Yi Shiwen's body. However, Yi Shiwen didn't move at all. Even his expression didn't change much. No matter how Wu Ziyu attacked, Yi Shiwen remained motionless. It was as if he was experiencing a nirvana rebirth. It seemed that he was completely at a disadvantage and could only passively take a beating. However, in fact, seeing how serious Zhu Yin was, this was a sign that the silence was about to erupt. This was the most terrifying existence. Bang! Wu Ziyu didn't know how many times his sword light slashed down. When he slashed down again, he found that his sword light was actually blocked. It was crushed by Yi Shiwen. His crazed expression immediately calmed down. He sensed an extreme sense of danger. Then, he saw an even more horrifying scene. The area around Yi Shiwen's body that was enveloped by his divine kingdom had actually started to crack. His invincible divine kingdom actually began to crack, and the root cause of the cracks was Yi Shiwen's body. The power released from his body even distorted the void and caused cracks to appear in the divine kingdom. He was like a beast that was waking up, growling in a low voice. He was gradually waking up from hibernation. This made him feel a great sense of horror spread and climbed into his heart. Did you have a good time just now? But it ends here. So what if it's a divine kingdom? Do you think that a divine kingdom is already invincible? Yi Shiwen said coldly. He released his qi. It was visible to the naked eye. It even penetrated the void and affected the chaos of the universe behind him. There was a sharp light flashing in his eyes. Two amazing rays of light shot directly at Nyodo. Boom! Yi Shiwen didn't make a move. The divine kingdom began to crack little by little. The cracks became bigger and bigger, and instantly spread in the direction of Wu Ziyu. Damn it, how can this be? Wu Ziyu hurriedly flew back to the center of the divine kingdom. At this time, he saw that around Yi Shiwen, the divine kingdom was shattering inch by inch. Although he kept urging the divine kingdom to expand the domain of the divine kingdom and suppress it, it seemed to have encountered some powerful gathering. Every time he got close, he would be destroyed. And it was not Yi Shiwen who made a move. Just his aura alone had already made his divine kingdom in danger of collapsing. This qi, Zhu Yin-er's eyes were slightly shocked. I didn't expect his hidden strength to be so strong. It is far stronger than I imagined. Maybe even the divine kingdom will be destroyed by him. At this time, she recalled how Yi Shiwen completely looked down on Wu Ziyu before. Perhaps this was his confidence, a trump card that could compete with the divine kingdom of the Sage Realm. After this battle, no matter the outcome, his name would probably be known in the Kurfürst Road. Even in the Kurfürst Road where monsters ran rampant, such a battle record was enough to shock people. It's useless. You don't have to struggle. In front of me, there is no use at all. Wu Ziyu roared, as if to hide the uneasiness in his heart. The divine kingdom on the stone path began to appear continuously and became clearer. Many creatures appeared in it. They were all powerful heroic spirits that he had enlightened. This was a country, a small world, and it could also give birth to powerful creatures. These powerful creatures were of various races. Under the leadership of a powerful Holy Spirit, they rushed towards Yi Shiwen. Wherever they passed, the divine kingdom was immediately reinforced, and the fragments of the divine kingdom that were shattered by Yi Shiwen were also recovering bit by bit. Many people could see that Wu Ziyu was interfering with Yi Shiwen's casting. In their opinion, Yi Shiwen must have used some powerful magical power. Otherwise, how could he compete with the divine kingdom? They even thought about what kind of magical power could fight against the divine kingdom. Roar! A loud dragon roar sounded. Every pore on Yi Shiwen's body was spitting out powerful thunder power, which condensed into a thunder dragon and soared into the sky. It rushed towards the powerful creatures in the divine kingdom that were rushing over. Boom! 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 These powerful creatures in Wu Ziyu's divine kingdom were swept by the thunder dragon and exploded in the air, turning into a cloud of blood mist. Many of these were Tao-proving level heroic spirits. Although Wu Ziyu had not been a divine lord for long, he had many followers in the past. Many of his followers had also turned into heroic spirits, and among them, there were even existences that he had enlightened to become holy spirits. But at this time, they were not a match for the Thunder Dragon at all. They exploded in the air one after another, not even having the time to scream. Beast, stop! Wu Ziyu slashed down with his sword and directly nailed the raging Thunder Dragon to death, turning it into the power of thunder all over the sky. And at this time, Yi Shiwen also completed the final release of his power, making people feel that he was more and more mysterious. Even under the infinite energy, people could not see his appearance clearly. An astonishing aura was released from his body. He slowly looked at Wu Ziyu and said, "One punch. Let me see how powerful the divine kingdom is. Can you take this punch of mine?" This was the second time that he had completely released his combat power. The first time was when he was facing the Demon Emperor. Although the Demon Emperor was only at the peak of the imperishable realm at that time, he gave him a feeling that he was even more terrifying than Wu Ziyu, who was in the Sage Realm. He knew that it was not an illusion. Realm often represented everything, but not everything could be clearly explained by the difference in realm. Beast Path! He blasted out a punch. Between the gaps of his fingers, countless fist energies in the air turned into countless mythological beasts and vicious beasts, rushing out. The heroic spirits that Wu Ziyu's followers had turned into were bitten to death by these mythological beasts and vicious beasts, becoming food in their stomachs. Moreover, these vicious beasts and mythological beasts directly rushed into the divine kingdom, wantonly trampling and destroying. It was as if the world had fallen into a great calamity of doomsday, suffering a terrible attack. The fist energy continued to wreak havoc, and it bombarded in Wu Ziyu's direction at an astonishing speed. Bang! Finally, Wu Ziyu's stone divine kingdom completely shattered in an instant. Countless vicious beasts and mythological beasts gathered and turned into a torrent, rushing towards Wu Ziyu. Chapter 2509. The power that Yi Shiwen completely released was enough to distort the sky. With a punch, even Wu Ziyu's holy kingdom was shattered in an instant. Although the holy kingdom was powerful, it was not truly invincible. If the power exceeded the limit that he could bear, it would still shatter. But this kind of situation was extremely rare, or it could be said that it would not happen to Eternal Realm warriors at all. Eternal Realm warriors could not compete with Sage Realm warriors no matter what. They were two completely different realms, especially when Sage Realm warriors had the enhancement of the Holy Kingdom. The gap between them was even greater than the gap between the Eternal Realm and the Eternal Realm. Or in other words, in their opinion, they had never seen such a terrifying scene. Yes, for them, this scene was no longer shocking nor strange, but terrifying, because it subverted all their previous understanding. Such a battle perhaps only happened in the ancient times, which was also a myth to them. Perhaps only those supreme existences who eventually became emperors would experience such an extremely terrifying battle. Yi Shiwen's fist energy penetrated the entire divine kingdom under such horrified gazes and bombarded the divine kingdom into pieces. The divine kingdom crumbled inch by inch in front of them, as if it had appeared in slow motion in front of them. Boom! The fist force blasted Wu Ziyu's body. Even with the enhancement of the Holy Kingdom, in front of this fist force, it still seemed too small. Half of Wu Ziyu's body that was hit instantly shattered, and the remaining half of his body flew out, like a heavy meteor bombarding the ground. A huge pit was blasted on the ground, and the shattered ground spread out like a dense spider web. Defeated, Wu Ziyu actually lost. Everyone's eyes widened in disbelief. It was not that they did not think that Wu Ziyu might lose, but they still could not truly accept that after using the Holy Kingdom, Wu Ziyu was still defeated by Yi Shiwen, who was in the Eternal Realm. It's really so strong. Damn, he's a monster. I've never seen or heard of it before. Is such a peerless monster really going to rise in this generation? Just one punch broke through the Holy Kingdom. Isn't the power of this punch a bit too strong? Is it really possible to cultivate the Eternal Realm to this level? No one has ever done it before, and no one will be able to do it in the future. He's really ridiculously strong. In the future, he might really be on par with those evildoers. Zhu Yin also showed a shocked expression at this time. At this moment, she recalled Yi Shiwen's words at that time. He was destined to surpass Wu Zimo's existence. He seemed extremely arrogant at that time. Now that he thought about it, it was not impossible. Roar! Wu Ziyu, who was sent flying, roared continuously, and a boundless aura swept through the air. A single strike was unable to kill him. For a god that surpassed the undead realm, even if half of his body was destroyed, he still wouldn't die. He was absolutely unwilling to be defeated by Yi Shiwen. He wanted to fight back. Bang! Another incomparably huge, overturning sky seal fell from the sky, directly smashing him into the ground for thousands of meters. The other half of his body was also on the verge of collapse. He was once again seriously injured by Yi Shiwen. In the face of Yi Shiwen, who had completely broken away from the shackles of cultivation, Wu Ziyu tried his best to resist, but in the end, he was unable to resist. The difference was really too great. It's simply impossible to resist. The difference between the two sides is really too great. I didn't expect his true strength to be so strong. Even the Sage Realm is completely no match for him. Are the younger generation so abnormal now? I vaguely heard that there seemed to be a few extremely powerful existences appearing in this generation. Could it be another golden era? There is more than one monster. In the 1,000-meter deep pit, Wu Ziyu's flesh was shattering inch by inch. He wanted to repair it, but the power that Yi Shiwen left in his body was constantly wreaking havoc, destroying his flesh and blasting him to death. Even a Sage Plane cultivator would be helpless when faced with the corrosion of such power. Above the deep pit, Yi Shiwen's expression was cold, and an astonishing sword will gathered in his hand. At this moment, he seemed to be the only king that dominated the world. Dominator sword will, sweeping and invincible. He can't really want to kill Wu Ziyu, right? Heavens, if Wu Ziyu is killed, I'm afraid it will really cause a sensation. Wu Zimo might even return from the upper heavens to hunt him down. No matter how strong he is, he can't be compared to Wu Zimo. This time, things are really serious. Wu Ziyu struggled to open his eyes and roared, "You dare to kill me." His voice was trembling, but it was not fear, but anger. Someone actually dared to kill him. Someone actually wanted to kill him. Someone actually could kill him. This was a problem that he had never thought about before, but now it was right in front of him. You came to kill me for a golden-backed dragon carp. Why can't I kill you? Yi Shiwen was not moved. So, what if it was Wu Zimo? Roar! Wu Ziyu roared, and a burst of colorful light suddenly erupted from his body, shooting straight into the sky. A huge crack was torn in the sky, and a terrifying stone chi spread out from it. It came from the same source as Wu Ziyu's stone chi, but it was even more terrifying. It should be said that they were existences on a completely different level. Wu Zimo! Zhu Yan'er's expression suddenly changed. If it was just Wu Ziyu, he would not be able to move her, but if it was Wu Zimo, it was enough to completely shock people. It should be said that in the entire Kurfürst Road, there was probably no one who could ignore Wu Zimo's existence. Although Wu Ziyu was also considered prominent compared to Wu Zimo, he was not in existence on the same level at all. An almost overwhelming aura spread down from the void, and then turned into a big hand, wanting to take Wu Ziyu away. Do you think it's so easy to take him away just because you want to? Yi Shiwen sneered. Even if the other party was the prominent Wu Zimo, he would not be able to take him away so easily. Ah! A cold snort came from the crack, and it seemed to be a little surprised that Yi Shiwen dared to resist. Swish! A stone sword formed in the air and directly slashed down towards Yi Shiwen. Don't look down on me. So what if you are Wu Zimo? Yi Shiwen roared, and a roulette suddenly appeared on his body, bombarding with unparalleled power. Bang! The stone sword was directly bombarded into powder. The 10,000 spell roulette directly bombarded towards Wu Ziyu, who was in midair. This attack would directly destroy Wu Ziyu's soul on the spot. You are courting death. Wu Zimo's voice finally came from the crack. Wu Zimo was obviously extremely annoyed by Yi Shiwen's incessant pestering. If it wasn't for the fact that this crack was only temporary and could not support his physical body to descend, he would have already rushed down to kill Yi Shiwen. But at this time, he did not give in at all. Another stone hand appeared and grabbed towards Yi Shiwen's 10,000 spell roulette. Thousands of magical powers suddenly rushed out from the 10,000 spell roulette, directly bombarding the stone hand into powder, and golden blood splashed out. Not only did it break the stone hand, but it also injured Wu Zimo's body. He actually injured Wu Zimo. What kind of magic tool is that? Zhu Yan'er's eyes widened because she was the clearest about how terrifying Wu Zimo was. Now that she suddenly saw Yi Shiwen injure Wu Zimo, she simply could not believe it. Although part of it was because Wu Zimo was careless and did not use his full strength, it was still enough to shock everyone. A newcomer who had just entered the Kurfürst Road, actually injured Wu Zimo, a top monster whose reputation was spread far and wide. If this news spread, it would definitely cause a greater sensation than Yi Shiwen defeating Wu Ziyu. Damn it! Golden blood continuously dripped from the other end of the crack. Wu Zimo continued to roar, and the crack gradually shrank. Yi Shiwen frowned slightly and put away the 10,000 spell roulette. With his current magic power, even though he had undergone a complete transformation from 1,000 years ago, it was still very difficult to use the 10,000 spell roulette. But the power was also evident. Wu Zimo, who was at the peak of the Sage Realm, was injured by him in an instant. If Yi Shiwen's body was here, he might be able to seriously injure Wu Zimo's body. Of course, this was also taking advantage of Wu Zimo's carelessness. Otherwise, it would not have been so easy to succeed. And his biggest target, Wu Ziyu, had been taken away by Wu Zimo. This inevitably made Yi Shiwen a little unhappy. Wu Ziyu was indeed not a concern for him at the moment, but as a divine fetus in the stone, he had refined his body, and his strength was about to enter a stage of rapid growth. There was no guarantee that he would not become a threat in the future. He had wanted to take advantage of the situation to finish him off, but he did not expect that Wu Zimo would still have the chance to take him away. Just now, Wu Zimo must have used some secret technique to catch him off guard. But he did not know that in the eyes of others, his actions just now had already frightened them. Compared to injuring Wu Zimo, defeating Wu Ziyu seemed to be nothing at all. If there were still people who thought that he was bragging before, then now no one would have such doubts anymore. This guy was really a monster. Nowadays, anyone of the younger generation was such a monster. Right now, he was only at the Eternal Realm. When he entered the Sage Realm, how terrifying would he be? It was simply unimaginable. Perhaps Yi Shiwen was not enough to be on the list of not to provoke the various king-level sects, but in the eyes of these people, he was already on the list of absolutely not to provoke. It was as if they wanted to firmly remember this face and this aura, lest they kicked an iron plate in the future. More message talismans flew all over the sky in an instant. Everyone wanted to be the first to spread this shocking news. This was really too shocking. Chapter 25:10. Once this news spread, it would naturally cause an uproar in the outside world. Yi Shiwen's name would naturally be famous in the world. After the battle, Yi Shiwen withdrew his momentum. Most of the power in his body returned to the cultivation vest and was suppressed by the cultivation vest. Yi Shiwen, after this battle, I am afraid that you will be famous all over the world. Ha! You even injured Wu Zimo. If you provoke him, maybe he will come back from the upper heavens. Zhu Yin stepped forward, and there was a flash in her eyes. She said with a faint smile on her face. Yi Shiwen did not care. He said in a regretful tone, "It's a pity that I didn't kill Wu Ziyu. But when I reach the upper heaven, I will kill Wu Zimo as well to avoid future troubles." If someone else said it, I would only think that he has lost his mind, but you are different. I believe that you have such a possibility, Zhu Yin said with a smile. Yi Shiwen just smiled and did not say much. But I advise you to leave as soon as possible. Even if Wu Zimo is looking for opportunities and has no time to fight, he has a lot of followers. In addition, the two brothers are not ordinary. When the time comes, there will be people who will cause trouble for you. Zhu Yin reminded him in a low voice. Yi Shiwen thought about it and realized that it was true. Wu Zimo and the others could not come in alone like he did. Although he also had some followers, they were too young. His followers were really not on the same level as those monstrous figures. Many of those monstrous geniuses were peerless figures who had existed for hundreds of thousands of years. Many of their followers were also hundreds of thousands of years old. Although these people's talents were not as good as those monstrous geniuses, they were still very terrifying after years of cultivation. There were even some senior existences who were not weaker than some monstrous geniuses. Even those monstrous figures would be very afraid of these old antiques. The only difference between these old antiques and those monstrous figures was that the followers of the old antiques wanted to advance to the king level but could not, while those monstrous figures could advance but forcibly suppressed it. That was the biggest difference. When one was at the peak of the sage plane, there were quite a few old antiques who were no weaker than those geniuses. It was not a coincidence that geniuses had died at the hands of their followers throughout the ages. If one did not become a monstrous figure, they would eventually die. Yi Shiwen was naturally very afraid of these people. However, I heard that your hidden valley also has a monster. This time, you can rely on him for protection. No matter how arrogant Wu Zimo is, he won't dare to come knocking on your door. Zhu Yin said, "Don't mention this matter again." Yi Shiwen shook his head and said, "It wasn't that he couldn't let go of his pride. A real man should know when to yield and when to stand tall. It was just that he didn't come to the Kurfürst road to fight for hegemony, nor to look for the so-called opportunity. It was just to find the reincarnation grass. As for the matter regarding the reincarnation grass, even the physician king had only read about it in the records of the medicine sovereign. He didn't know where exactly it was because the records he obtained were only incomplete and incomplete. The only fortunate thing was that he had 1,000 years to search for it. However, Zhu Yin's words had caught his attention. He decided not to stay any longer and left immediately. And this matter directly caused a huge sensation. Although not everyone could enter the Kurfürst road, other than the geniuses, all the major forces had experts entering. Many old antiques were also looking for opportunities. However, they weren't looking for opportunities to become emperors. Instead, they were looking for opportunities to become monarchs. That was more practical for them. Therefore, all the major forces were very concerned about the internal affairs of the Kurfürst road. This battle made Yi Shiwen, who was originally somewhat famous, instantly enter the upper echelons of the major forces. He was far from being an outstanding figure of the present age. If this continued, he might even become the next monster. There weren't many people like this in every sect. To this day, those who remained in the Kurfürst road were even rarer. This was the accumulation of millions of years. Therefore, any one of them was enough to shock everyone. Although many people were very envious that another character had appeared in the Hidden Valley this time, more people chose to let the old antiques in their sects pay attention to Yi Shiwen's whereabouts. If necessary, they could kill him to avoid future troubles. The battle for the Kurfürst road was one less. Every monster might be killed when they just rose. Such things were not uncommon since ancient times. It could even be said to be very common. And because of this, Yi Shiwen was also on the must-kill list of the major sections. At the same time, the Hidden Valley also took action. Every time the Kurfürst road was opened, there would be a lot of people in the Hidden Valley. Even if most of them weren't competing for opportunities, they would still have many other harvests. The upper echelons of the Hidden Valley directly ordered them to pay attention to Yi Shiwen's movements. It was best to protect him when they could. Although this was also a kind of training, it would be a loss if the training caused the person to be gone. Yi Shiwen had evaded Wu Zimo's attack, but he didn't hide his figure. Therefore, he was still discovered by others from time to time. Experts of all sizes had launched a surprise attack on him. He had never seen or heard of such existences before. Obviously, these were forces that the major forces usually cultivated in the dark and didn't see the light of day. Therefore, even if they were caught, they couldn't find the weak points of the major forces. In just a few decades, Yi Shiwen had encountered dozens of powerful existences. He was also ruthless and ruthless. No matter which force it was, he didn't need to listen to any explanation. He killed the moment he found them. He was also very clear that it was useless even if he asked. Would the Hidden Valley fall out with the other party because of him? The Hidden Valley had probably killed many geniuses of the opposing forces. This matter couldn't be brought to light. There was even an old monster hidden among them who had stepped into the peak of the Sage realm. Although he wasn't at the peak of the group, he still forced Yi Shiwen into an extremely difficult situation. In the end, he caught Yi Shiwen off guard and seriously injured him with the Avicii sword. Finally, he was able to escape unscathed. This battle made Yi Shiwen famous. Although he had used the power of the ritual implement and was even more unexpected, if it were anyone else, they wouldn't have been able to do it at all. This made everyone know some of his trump cards. Unless someone at the peak of the Sage realm was mobilized, it would be very difficult to kill him. However, it was already unusual for there to be such a person at the peak of the Sage realm in the lower heavens. This was because the old antique was originally training in seclusion nearby and only rushed over after he succeeded. This battle also made Yi Shiwen rest for 3 years before he completely recovered. Apart from being injured by the old antique, he had also used the power of the Avicii sword and suffered a certain degree of backlash. That battle had also made Yi Shiwen realize the gap between himself and those at the peak of the Sage Plane. Even though his opponent had been seriously injured, he had no choice but to leave. While it was already a shocking achievement for others, he felt that it was a very humiliating thing to do. He still had to improve his strength. Decades had passed, and the Kerfurst Road had been open for more than 100 years. His cultivation had also been improving in these decades, from the late stage of the imperishable realm, when he had just advanced to the great completion of this level. The main reason was that the accumulation of the past thousands of years was too deep. Now, every minute and every second of that accumulation had been converted into his strength. As such, it only took him a few decades to train this level to the extreme again, and he could really prepare to break through to the peak of the imperishable realm. This was a very important level, and he didn't want to break through casually, because if he couldn't lay a good foundation, it would undoubtedly be much more difficult for him to condense a divine nation and break through to the Sage realm. Only when he truly entered the Sage realm would he truly be considered to be a first-class figure in the Kerfurst Road. By then, even if he were to face those monsters, he would have the power to protect himself. As for directly training to the peak of the Sage realm, that was not within the scope of his consideration. After all, he was not there to fight for supremacy. In the past few decades, Yi Shiwen could be said to have traveled to all of the secret realms in the Calm Peace Heaven. Although the Calm Peace Heaven was only one of the lower heavens, in reality, there were many extremely dangerous places there, and many naturally formed killing formations that could kill gods. It was truly terrifying. No matter how careful Yi Shiwen was, he still experienced being trapped in a few of them, and had to pay a huge price to deduce the mysteries of the killing formations before he could escape. And all of that energy had helped Yi Shiwen's Tao of formations advance by leaps and bounds, and he could be called a master. But what made him depressed was that even after searching all of the secret realms in the Calm Peace Heaven, he still couldn't find the reincarnation grass. It was obvious that there was no reincarnation grass in the Calm Peace Heaven. He had no choice but to give up on the Calm Peace Heaven and head to the next Titan Emperor Heaven. Among the 33 heavens, the Calm Peace Heaven and the Titan Emperor Heaven were neighboring worlds. Compared to the Calm Peace Heaven, the Titan Emperor Heaven was much larger, and therefore more difficult to search. If possible, he didn't want to search them one by one. It would be like searching for a needle in a haystack. But other than that, he didn't have any other options. Because all of the major forces had been sending people after him, he had wasted a lot of time in the Calm Peace Heaven. It had taken him nearly 100 years to complete his search. There were a total of 33 such minor worlds, and he didn't have that much time. Therefore, he decided that he might as well change his appearance. That would save him a lot of trouble. Yi Shiwen took a deep breath and punched the barrier to the Titan Emperor Heaven. The power of his fist blasted a huge hole in the barrier, and he took a big stride forward. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.